Okay, so I will call the meeting to order at 6:33. I want to welcome everyone to the Housing Commission's February 3rd, 2021 regular meeting. This is a teleconference meeting with Housing Commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating remotely to ensure proper social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. And as I said already, I will call the meeting to order at 6:33. So I would like to introduce staff and Housing Commission members present. I'll start with staff to give Nevada time to join. Staff Deputy Commissioner Development Director Rhonda Kaufman, Management Analyst 2 Mike Noche, Senior Planner Tom Smith, Associate Planner Ori Pass, and Contract Planner Payal Bagat. I hope I said your last name, well, both your names correctly. And you can correct me if I did not. And I will introduce the Housing Commissioners. Lauren Bigelow is present. Karen Grove, Chair, that's me. Rachel Horst, Vice Chair, is present. Wendy McPherson is present. And drumroll, is Nevada present yet? No, but she will be soon. Okay. And not yet present are Nevada, who we're expecting to join soon, Commissioner Pimentel, and Commissioner Conroy.
I'm here.
Ah, oh, okay, excellent. I did not see you on the participants list. Okay, great. Okay, so everyone except Nevada. Nevada, are you there? Not yet. All right. Will somebody let me know when Nevada joins? Mike, maybe you, or just let us all know. And Mike, what would you please provide instructions to the Housing Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Will do. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Housing Commission. Welcome everyone to the February 3rd meeting of the Housing Commission. At this time, we ask that members of the Housing Commission please remain on screen for the duration of the meeting. You will control your own webcams and microphones. Staff will engage webcams and microphones, as well as applicant presenters that are in attendance this evening to make presentations and respond to members of the Housing Commission. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment, after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raised hand feature. I will then have the ability to open your microphone and you will be able to provide public comment to the Housing Commission. That concludes the instructions and I return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So before we start, I want to acknowledge that we are, I believe, at least I am on the peninsula right now, and I am on Ramaytush Ohlone land, which has never been ceded, and we are benefiting from the caregiving that they have given to this land, and they're allowing us to be here. So under public comment, the public may address the Housing Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the Housing Commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The Housing Commission cannot act on items that are not listed on the agenda, and therefore we cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Mike, do we have any public comment?
Madam Chair, we do have one hand raised, so I will get our timer ready. And just as a general reminder, for members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raise hand feature. I will then have the ability to open your microphone and you can provide public comment to the Housing Commission. I do see one general public comment now, which Julie Shanson, I will allow you to open your microphone and you should be able to address the Housing Commission now.
Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Housing Commissioner and Chairwoman. I have one general comment and I have a comment about item D3. I will try to hang out and make it until that agenda item comes up. If for some weird reason I am no longer available when it does come up, I will email it to you. My general public comment is, how has the city been able to keep people housed once they rent or buy a BMR unit and fortuitously their situation changes, meaning their income is higher than what is allowable under BMR regulations? Does the landlord or developer then make another unit available to replenish the stock when the housing goes to market rate? And you can't comment about this. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay,
Thank you.
go ahead.
My apologies, Madam Chair. Thank you, Julie. And it looks like we do not have any other public comments at this time, so I will return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
Okay, and under regular business, the Housing Commission receives informational presentations in addition to considering policy matters and administrative actions. Are there any clarifying questions from the Housing Commission on D1, which is to approve the minutes from the Housing Commission meetings of November 4th and November 18th before taking public comment on the item? Mike, do we have any public comment on approving the minutes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For members of the public who are in attendance and didn't hear earlier announcements, if you'd like to provide public comment on this item, you may use the raised hand feature, and I will have the ability to open your microphone. And I will just confirm, and I do not see any hands raised at this time, Madam Chair. Return the meeting to you.
Then the item is open for Housing Commission discussion. I don't anticipate any. Then I will ask for a motion and a second for the stated motion, which hasn't been stated yet. So first I need a motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Okay, I think I heard Commissioner McPherson move to approve the minutes, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Horst if you can second it and see where motion.
Sure.
Okay, so is it okay if I is anyone opposed? Speak, please, because I can't see everyone.
No, and welcome, Commissioner Merriman.
Welcome, Commissioner Merriman. We have had a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the 2 November meetings. Do you have any discussion on that item before we?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm late.
That's okay. We knew you were on your way. So I'm going to just ask for anyone who opposes or abstains to please let me know. And in that case, it passes unanimously. And we will move on. And item D2 is a recommendation of a below market rate housing agreement term sheet with Waymo for 950 O'Brien Drive. And Associate Planner Ori Pass will introduce the item for us.
Thank you, Chair. This is staff is recommending that the Housing Commission recommend that the Planning Commission approve a BMR term sheet with Waymo. This is a request for a change of use from previously a warehouse and storage use to what will be an R&D facility at this location. There is a representative from Waymo and the design team available to answer questions, and I'm also available to answer any questions about the staff report. Thank you.
Are there any questions from anyone? Okay, in that case, I think we should check on public comment. Is there any public comment on this item, Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll just give it 1 second. And just as a reminder for members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment on this item, please engage the raised hand feature now. I will then have the ability to unmute your microphone. And Madam Chair, I do not see any hands raised at this time, so I will return the meeting to you.
Okay, then the item is open for Housing Commission discussion. Does anyone have anything to say? Seeing nothing, I would ask for a motion and a second for the stated motion.
I move approval.
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you. Does anyone abstain or oppose? Seeing and hearing nothing, it passes unanimously. Okay. Item D3, recommendation of a below market rate agreement term sheet with Greystar for the Menlo Uptown project. Senior Planner Tom Smith will introduce item D3. Welcome, Tom.
Good evening, Chair Grove and Housing Commission members. I think this is a little unusual for your typical way of conducting business, but we would first like to have the applicant give a very brief presentation for their project, and then I'll come back and give a brief staff presentation, and we can have questions and comments from there. So at this time, I will turn it over to Andrew Morkos and Doug Leventon of Greystar.
Thank you, Tom, and good evening, Housing Commissioners. I'm just going to pull up our presentation and confirm you all can see that, hopefully. Perfect. So my name is Andrew Morkos, as Tom said. I am the Senior Development Director for Greystar in Menlo Park, and I am very excited to be here presenting our project, Menlo Uptown, in the Bayside area of Menlo Park. And the project is 400, and as a brief overview, the project is 483 total housing units. 441 of those are in rental apartment buildings, and the other 42 are for sale townhome units. Just as overview of where we are in process with the city entitlement and EIR process, the draft EIR was released on December 4th of 2020, and the comment period ended yesterday. From here, we are hoping to go to Planning Commission and followed by City Council for ultimate project approval. Here we see our BMR allocation in our project. So on the left, you see a rendering of the multifamily buildings. There will be 67 BMR units in that project. And on the right, you'll see the townhomes, and there will be 6 for sale BMR units there. And at the bottom, I just note that the new RHNA allocations are 1,735. So this project could be a dent in, that large allocation for Menlo Park's BMR housing requirement. First, I want to touch on our outreach and just what we've done throughout the community since we started this process in 2019. We held 3 in-person community meetings at Belhaven Senior Center. To announce those meetings, we sent 6,000 plus postcards that were in English and in Spanish to Belhaven, East Menlo Park, and East Palo Alto. And the reasoning is that these BMR units and our project is of interest to all the neighbors in this area, and BMR units are available to those who work in Menlo Park as well. There were Spanish translators present, and I speak Spanish myself, so I was able to converse with individuals who felt more comfortable in Spanish as well. I've also had 50 plus one-on-one phone calls with community members, and which has helped massage our project and bring you a project almost 3 years later that it's much better for the community input. We also prepared, with the help of Rhonda and and the city staff, a BMR overview brochure, because we found that people in search of BMRs were confused about how to sign up for them, how to get them in Menlo Park, and we thought it was something that it was achievable for us to help answer those questions and help navigate what can be a very confusing process. All this outreach resulted in kind of a two-pronged BMR overview. The one we're focusing on today are the 73 on-site BMR units, and 67 of them will be rental units at low income level. That's 80% of AMI to 51% of AMI, and 6 for sale units at moderate income level. So that's 120 of AMI. And again, these help Menlo Park achieve the RHNA target of 1,735. The rest of the slide just is confirming that we're going to adhere to all the BMR guidelines. This slide shows that we will equitably distribute the BMR units throughout the unit mix, so unit type. And this slide shows we will distribute the units throughout the projects, so they're not all on one floor or in one area of the project, as is required. The second prong that incorporates some needs of the BMR community is our recommendation that our community amenity be dedicated to the creation and kind of furthering of community land trust in Menlo Park. And our community amenity totaled 8.9 million. And the way we got here was an overwhelming indication from the report Investment and Disinvestment as Neighbors, prepared by Y-Plan and UC Berkeley, identifying community land trust as a very important part of relieving pressure on displacement in everywhere, but in particular underprivileged low-income areas such as Bellhaven. This, along with public comment on the subject and one-on-one conversations with several community members, indicated this was something we should pursue. And so we are recommending 2,900 square feet of our community amenity space be dedicated to office space for the VCLT, Valley Community Trust, that is currently operated by Pam Dorr and has 3 Menlo Park residents as its board members. And I'll just quickly state that the key with community land trust is that they're community run. And so they will reflect the needs and wants and are flexible to reflect the needs and wants of the community. And so I think that's a very important feature of community land trusts. And I'm sure it's one of the reasons why it was on the draft 2020-21 Housing Commission work plan and recommended by Y-Plan and UC Berkeley, and frankly recommended nationwide. So we're really excited to present this to you. And lastly, just wanted to share, we have endorsements from Housing Leadership Council, Bay Area Housing Advocacy Coalition, and Silicon Valley Leadership Group. So with that, I want to thank you again for your time, and we look forward to any questions or comments.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
Tom.
So I will go ahead and give you some of it will be a sort of a recap of a little bit of what you heard. but some of it will be new information or actually information from the staff report. And so I'm going to make sure my screen is shared with everyone there. Okay. So brief overview, you saw the renderings in Andrew's presentation, and this is just a map. So for context, Bellhaven neighborhood is the lower part of this image here, and then we have the Facebook sites. Hopefully you can see my cursor on the screen here. Okay, great. These parcels that are zoned orange are RMUB, which is residential mixed use, and the B is for bonus level potential development. And so the site is an RMUB zoned site, and it's outlined here in red. And so there are some additional housing that's been constructed in this area. The remainder is mostly office, and actually quite a bit of this area is still existing office, although there are several residential projects underway. And then the Tide Academy High School is located here on this parcel zoned PF. So that's just a little bit of context. So project overview, it would involve the demolition of more than 110,000 square feet of existing office and industrial buildings. And as Andrew mentioned, there would be construction of 483 residential units and 2,940 square feet of office uses. The project would be divided between 441 rental units, which would be located in 2 7-story buildings, and 42 for-sale townhome units that you saw in the renderings. Of that total, the applicant is proposing 73 BMR housing units, or a little over 15%. And under the BMR guidelines, the requirement is actually 66.15 rental units and 6.3 for-sale units. So because there are some partial units there, the applicant is proposing that the combined 0.45 partial unit be incorporated as an additional rental unit rather than through the payment of an in lieu fee for that partial obligation. And so what we would get is a final total of 67 rental units for low income households, and then 6 for-sale units for moderate income households under the proposal. As Andrew mentioned, there is a community amenity requirement for this project, and that's because, as I mentioned earlier, the zoning is RMUB, residential mixed use bonus. And under a base level of development, the applicant could develop up to 30 dwelling units per acre. A bonus level of development allows them to ask for increased height, density, and floor area ratio. And so this proposal is going up to 100 dwelling units per acre. So it's a big jump over the base level of development. As a result, we went through an appraisal process which determined that the value of the community amenity would need to equal $8.9 million. And so the applicant shared their proposal with you. I won't recap that too much, but essentially it would be providing office space within the project. It would be within one of the apartment buildings. And that office space would be provided rent-free to Valley Community Land Trust. And then there would be a lump sum of about $4.4 million to make up the $8.9 million obligation. And those funds would be used towards Bellhaven housing preservation and stabilization. There was an alternative that was proposed, which would provide the office space in the building, the 2,940 square feet, to other nonprofit entities serving the community, and then a similar lump sum contribution of about $4.4 million toward the Menlo Park Community Campus. As the applicant stated, I think if you want to call it option 1, the Valley Community Land Trust option is their preferred option. To be clear, the Housing Commission we're not seeking a recommendation on this particular aspect of the project, but we wanted to make you aware of it because it is obviously very related to housing in the community, and we do welcome questions and discussion on this topic. We would love to have your feedback on your thoughts and maybe any guidelines you would want to see in place for an operation of a community land trust as part of this project through the community amenity. And so now for the recommendation, staff is recommending that the Housing Commission recommend approval of the BMR term sheet to City Council. The BMR proposal meets the minimum requirements of the BMR housing program guidelines. And the size and location of the units would be comparable with the market rate units being offered. It does support the city's goal of providing additional housing and a live, work, play environment in the Bayfront area. But we acknowledge that the commission may wish to ask the applicant about the selected unit mix. As was stated previously, the rental units would be all low income and the for sale units would be all moderate income. And so you may want to ask more about that mix and request modifications to achieve a desired mix of income levels there. So with that, I would turn it back over to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Andrew. At this time, I want to ask if we have any clarifying questions, and then after that, we would go to public comment. I see that Lauren does, so Lauren, take it away. And John, you'll be next.
As no surprise to anybody, I have questions. So the unit spread that you guys have for the BMRs are 17 studio, 12 junior 1-bedroom, 33 1-bedroom, 4 2-bedroom, and 1 3-bedroom. What is the unit spread across all of the 441 units?
It's approximately the same. So what we did is try to take 15% of each total unit type and get to the total that was what we needed to.
Okay, so you guys are doing predominantly studios and 1-bedrooms with 2s and 3s that are just kind of
in corners or where they make sense design wise. That's right.
Okay. All right. I'm just, as an aside, very excited to see the 2-bedrooms and the 3-bedrooms because they're really, really great for our families who need help staying. So I appreciate their inclusion, but that's the only question I had for right now. Thank you so much.
Sure.
John, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Question on the granting of office space to Valley Community Land Trust. Is that a perpetual commitment, or is there some horizon on that?
It's a perpetual commitment. We haven't gotten into the details, but we fully expect it will be deed restricted and it will be at no rent.
And if for some reason Valley Community Land Trust were to cease to exist at some point in the future, what would happen at that point?
So I think that's up for discussion with the city, but, and I don't want to speak for the city staff, but I think it'd be helpful to have any thoughts as we start to negotiate that.
Yeah, through the chair, if I may, I think that is kind of an open question. And so that's some of the feedback that we would like to hear from you is in terms of if a community land trust weren't to work there, what kinds of fallback plan would you want to see? Who would you want to occupy that space?
Thank you. That's all I have.
I see Kurt, and then I'm going to ask something and I'll go back to Lauren.
So as a result of the pandemic and people working remotely, I've read CoStar and others have indicated that the vacancy rate in apartments up and down the peninsula is in excess of 10% pretty much across the board, and that rents have dropped by 15% or more. How has that impacted any of your pro formas?
It's been a hard year for everyone. So it's been really challenging from a work perspective, and I know it's been really challenging for people who have lost their jobs, but we're no exception. And what we found is in Menlo Park, actually rents have dropped 30%. So We're committed to these projects. We're committed to Menlo Park, and really hope that we can continue working with the city to bring the much needed housing. But we really value our partnership with the city and hope that together we can bring these projects to fruition.
Good luck.
Okay, for my question, I have printed out your memo in which you propose 17 studios, 12 junior one bedroom, 33 one bedroom, but what did you end up proposing? Because by my math, that wasn't exact, it was sort of heavily weighted for smaller units. So what are the updated numbers?
Those appear to be the right numbers. So 17 studios, 12 junior one bedrooms, 33 one bedrooms, 4 2 bedrooms, and 1 3 bedroom.
Yeah. Okay, never mind. I found my misunderstanding of my notes, and it's perfectly in proportion. Just as you
Okay.
said. So thank you for helping me clear that up. Lauren, your turn.
Regarding the deed restrictions on the townhomes, what number of years are we looking at?
We haven't started those discussions. So again, I think we would be open to recommendations from Housing Commission.
Okay, but you're thinking that the VCLT home would be in perpetuity and then the townhomes,
The townhomes, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're in perpetuity as well, or Rhonda?
Rhonda, remind us. Or Mike.
Sure. Yeah, so both are 55-year terms.
Okay. To comply with TCAC?
To comply with our BMR ordinance.
Oh, thank you. Yes. And I don't know, the city having the right of first refusal to, echo, sorry. The city having right of first refusal for the VCLT space to where it would go if it didn't work out seems like sensible thing, but that isn't the question. So I'll just put it out there, and Nevada, go to you.
Go ahead, Nevada.
Hi, I just wanted to ask a clarifying question at this moment. So I saw in your presentation, it was about 1,700 units that you're quoting as being part of the expected obligation for the housing element. And could I get just a little more specificity on what part of the housing element obligation you're pulling to get that?
Yeah, my understanding is that that's the proposed very low, low, and moderate income requirement per arena. It does not include the above moderate income requirement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Oh, Rachel, go ahead.
This is a question for staff, actually. We can also ask questions of staff at this time, correct? So there's a line in the staff report that says that the Housing Commission should note that the project proposal is still under compliance review by city staff, and aspects of the design are subject to change before final project actions. I understand what we are deciding on tonight, but I just wanted to make sure I understand the detail of that. What components of the project are still under compliance review? If it's is it just the community amenities piece, or are there other big changes that could happen after tonight?
Right. So that's a great question. Under SB 330, this is an SB 330 project, and under that there is a compliance review. And so we're at a point where none of the major, the number of units that's proposed is not going to be changing. It's more about refinements to gross floor area, the types of materials and finishes on the building. It'll be minor adjustments to the plans. And so I think what you see and are hearing about now is essentially gonna remain pretty similar to the final product.
I'm looking at, I have a bunch of questions. I'm not sure they're clarifying or just for additional information questions. So that's why I'm looking down for a moment, people.
I'm in the same boat, Chair, but I would love to hear public comment.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to public comment. I think most of my questions are sort of expansive rather than clarifying. So, Mike, can you take us through public comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As a reminder for members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment to the Housing Commission, please engage the raised hand feature now. I will then have the ability to open your microphone and you will be able to provide public comment to the Housing Commission. We do have a few public comments, so I will take these in order. One moment, please, as we pull up our timer. Okay, and our first public comment will be Kim Novello, and you should be able to open your microphone now, Kim.
Good evening, Housing Commission members and staff and other guests. Thank you so much for allowing public comment. This is my first Housing Commission meeting. I've been a resident of Menlo Park for 14 years and a resident of the Peninsula for over 40. I am actually concerned based on what I've heard this evening. Although I've been in Menlo Park for 14 years, I have never once heard of below market rate housing until this month, or January this year. So I don't feel like the outreach is reaching everyone. I actually live, I'm currently in the downtown area. I've lived in the Fair Oaks neighborhood before. I've also lived in the furthest south part of Menlo Park, across Palo Alto, and never once heard of a BMR option. Also, I'm curious what the needs of the existing residents, given that we're in a housing crisis. My definition of housing crisis is that the people that actually live here can
Kim, or Madam Chair, if I may, Kim, looks like we lost her. So Madam Chair, if it's okay with you, I can keep a lookout for Kim, and then we can kind of restart the clock and allow her to finish up if that works for you. Oh, looks like she's logged back in now, so I can. Kim, it looks like we lost you, but I'm gonna allow you to talk again, and then I can restart the clock. So you should be able to unmute yourself now.
And I think we heard, it helps, we heard you through saying that you live near downtown, but you've also lived in other areas of Menlo Park and North Fair Oaks.
Thank you. Yes, I've lived in the Fair Oaks neighborhood, as well as the southernmost part of Menlo Park near University Avenue. I don't know what it's called, just across the street, literally from East Palo Alto. And never once have I ever heard anything about below market rate housing. So I don't feel like the advertising of it in 14 years has been satisfactory. I'm wondering, I don't know what the needs of existing residents are, but I feel like those are the needs we need to meet as a city. and including the number of units available and the size of units available, what do the current residents that are in our housing crisis need? And the same with the style. I know Facebook is over on that side of Menlo Park, but it doesn't match the rest of Menlo Park. And I don't understand why we're building these urban style houses. Do the people in Bellhaven prefer that? I just don't feel like the public, the residents that are here are, I don't feel like we're being asked what we want. What else? Let's see. Sorry, I lost my notes. I think we also need more for sale units. The reason we're in a crisis is there's no affordable housing to buy. And I don't think it's a long-term benefit for residents to not be able to own property as opposed to having to continuously rent and have rates continually rise. And my rent's only gone down 15%. So thank you for your time.
Owen?
Thank you, Kim. And our next public comment will be Julie Shanson. Julie, I'm going to unmute your microphone. You should be able to address the commission now. And this is for Julie Shanson. Julie, if you're still with us.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
I had no idea you couldn't hear me. Thank you very much. I have a written statement here. So I'm a little bit concerned about the amenity that Gateway is proposing. While it seems that Valley Land Trust is building up Menlo Park roots as a member who's pretty active in the Bellhaven neighborhood, I haven't heard much about the Menlo Uptown project. And when I've been talking to other people and renters in the Bellhaven neighborhood, I hadn't heard that other people had either the outreach was done too long ago and people don't remember, or it wasn't done to the people I asked. So I just put that out there. I think it's great that we're getting more residential housing stock in the city of Menlo Park. I think it's problematic that the necessary services for the neighborhood, including banks, grocery stores, pharmacies, adequate public transportation, and recreational space have not been provided or planned for in advance of this project. And I think this goes to the earlier comment, the comments from the woman we just heard of about the style not being in keeping with the rest of the city. I think up and down the peninsula, we're going to need to create more high density areas, more multifamily homes, but even the mix that's proposed here is mostly 1-bedrooms and junior 1-bedrooms as opposed to families. And we like to think of Menlo Park as being a good place to raise your family. I think if you ask current residents of the area, meaning the Bellhaven Bayfront area, one of the key complaints has been the isolation created by the configuration of the freeways. Adding more residences to this mix won't help the concerns that to access basic services, one must traverse the freeway or even 2 freeways. I also believe, as I mentioned before, that outreach hasn't been adequate to the current residents of the Bellhaven Bayfront community about the opportunities for BMR housing at Menlo Uptown or BMR housing in Menlo Park, period. Providing office space and working capital for a community land trust to set up shop in Menlo Park without strong neighborhood and community ties could be seen as continuing a long tradition of a neighborhood done unto, meaning that residents don't see a lot of self-determination in what gets built in the neighborhood or who leads the change. I understand that because of this pandemic, word of mouth is hampered. Running into someone who lets you know about this project is unlikely as we distance in public places. Still, at some point, the current health regulations will lift and we'll be meeting each other in common spaces again. So I ask, what is the message neighbors should share or will share about this project? How has it been developed with awareness of past wrongs and an eye toward equity and inclusion? How likely is this particular new housing stock to help stem the tide of displacement or to help current residents of multifamily households become less impacted? And I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, Julie. And our next public speaker will be Pam Jones. Pam, you should be able to address the commission now.
Thank you very much. And I want to welcome you all to your first meeting in 2021. Here we are already. And yes, and also thank the staff and as well as Marcos and the staff from Greystar. I am very much support community land trust, but the way that I envision it is it's something that comes out of the community, and so that the community is aware of what their options are, so that they're led through the process. So the opportunity for us to create our own land trust occurs. I have spoken with Pam Dorr a couple of times, but with this project, we don't have any documentation of what is the Valley Community Land Trust all about. There's nothing attached. So I don't know who the Bellhaven residents are that are on the board. I have no idea who's on the board in general. So I think it's important that this is extremely transparent so that it's not people coming in and fixing the community that couldn't take care of themselves. So from that standpoint, it could be very disturbing, and I could be wrong, but getting the community together and having this as a specific agenda so that folks would understand and then have an opportunity to give their opinion seems to me to be very important. I also am concerned about giving a business an office space, free office space in perpetuity. As I've stated to you privately, my concern is how do we know that they're 100% of their time there, they're going to be devoted to the city of Menlo Park. And so, again, that there is a concern. On the other hand, I do need to say, I thank you very much for being creative with the amenities, because when you look at the amenities list, it's so horribly out of date that I can see where it would be difficult to use it. There was a place in your report that you talked about giving a lump sum to the Menlo Park Community Center, and I believe that you would not be able to do that because of its appearance, since you have not had your project formally approved. Again, thank you all, and thank you for your work.
Thank you, Pam. And our next public speaker will be Corey Smith. Corey, you should be able to unmute your microphone and address the commission now.
Thank you very much, and good evening, commissioners. Corey Smith on behalf of the Housing Action Coalition. We're a regional nonprofit that advocates for homes at all income levels, market rate, mixed income, subsidized, affordable, and supportive housing. We think that our affordability and displacement crisis is driven by a lack of homes. It's not the only reason, but we do think it's the primary reason. And it is that reason that we are in support of the proposal here today. We support thousands of homes all over the region, and Greystar, builds high quality housing for people all over the peninsula, all over the West Coast. And what you've got in front of you, I think, is a really unique opportunity. Specifically speaking to the below market rate housing on site, we always value when there's a range of incomes. We think that the mixed incomes and integration of communities is really, really crucial. And the creativity around some rental, some home ownership, the land trust, it's a good package deal overall. And we wholeheartedly encourage you to recommend something that you feel can be really additive to the community. And we think that this proposal is that. I absolutely understand that this isn't going to solve all of the problems. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to provide safe, quality housing with any one individual project. But this is going to be a home for somebody. And we think that that's kind of gets lost in the conversation about percentages and FAR ratio and all of these other details. We're talking about homes for people. And so for that reason, we are enthusiastically in support. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And just as a reminder to those attendees, if you'd like to offer public comment, please use the raised hand feature now. And Madam Chair, I don't see any additional hands raised. Oh, never mind. We do have one more. So Joshua 2, I will unmute you should be able to unmute your microphone now and address the commission.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Josh and one of the board members of Valley Community Land Trust, and just wanted to thank folks for their comments before. And just to quickly introduce myself, I've been a Bay Area resident my whole life. Live in Menlo Park right now with 4 small children. And kind of previous to what I'm doing now, lived and worked in at Eastside actually, and worked with a ton of students who are first in their family to go to college, and many of them based in Bellhaven. And we're super excited about this project. And I think while the comments that Kim and Pam and others, I think are super valid and ring true, we're pursuing this land trust with a tremendous amount of humility. And as a forming board, we have a super strong commitment to ensuring that we provide equity and inclusion. In fact, a third of our board seats are going to be reserved for residents of VCLT projects. A third of the seats are reserved for residents of the neighborhood that the land trust serves. And a third of the seats reserved for folks in appointed positions like bankers and housing professionals, so that we have experts. And so it's super important that the land trust serves the communities that it exists to serve. I think humility is just so important there, and it's something that's super important to us. And we're really excited about this Uptown project, just because tangibly it's going to help 73 working families own homes where they live. And it's just super exciting to get affordable housing, and just wanted to communicate how important it is that we continue to hear the feedback, and hear you on the feedback of doing outreach. It's definitely challenging in a pandemic, but we're definitely pursuing a lot of research driven and just digital means to get more voices heard. And it's super, super important to us. So thanks so much for giving me a chance to chime in.
Thank
Great.
you.
Oh, I see 2 hands now.
Yes, so we do have another. And thank you, Joshua. Our next public speaker will be Diane Dittmar. Diane, you should be able to unmute your microphone now.
Okay, there we go. Hi, I'm Diane Dittmar, and I've been a resident of Menlo Park for over 30 years. I've raised my family here, my community's here, my best friends are here, and I'm also a board member on the Valley Community Land Trust. And I just wanted to echo some of the things that Josh has said, and that is that I think that this is a great project. It's a wonderful project to provide affordable housing for those people that need it, that are residents of Menlo Park already. And the fact that Greystar is building the BMR units and the affordable housing units on site is a tremendous advantage because it's integrated into the community and serves the community of Menlo Park. And wanted to also say about the land trust amenity. It's such a wonderful way to keep people from being displaced. And as Josh said, a third of the seats are going to be reserved for residents of the CLT projects, and a third are reserved for residents of the geographic areas that are served. We're just a forming board. And so there's so many great reasons to support this project. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for all the comments.
Thank you, Diane. And I believe that is our last public comment, but if I may, Madam Chair, just as a final reminder to folks, if you'd like to move forward with presenting a public comment to the commission at this time, you may use that raised hand feature. And I do not see any further hands raised at this time. So I will return the meeting to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so back to us, and any further questions, more open-ended questions perhaps, or discussion? Kurt, why don't you start us off?
So this is sort of a follow-up to my last question. You know, in a prior life in the 1980s, I worked from that life, and you know, a big financial partner of projects not too dissimilar from this. And there was sort of a cataclysmic event in those days, a change in the tax laws that resulted in a lot of partnerships and going into dissolution and whatnot. I'm curious to know whether or not Greystar's lender, if they have a lender, how they're feeling about a market that's down 30%.
Okay, why don't we okay, go ahead, Andrew.
Okay. So I would say that it has been a challenging year, but you know, we and our investors are wholeheartedly committed to bringing this project to fruition, and we have confirmed that commitment recently, and so we're all just very excited to be able to bring it. There were definitely bumps in the road, and it has been a challenging process that I never want to relive again. I'm sure none of us do, but I think we're going to be successful, and I really wholeheartedly believe that this is going to be a good project for Menlo Park, and I'm just excited to be able to bring it.
Thank you. John?
Thank you. Yeah, informational question. Could somebody direct me to the website for Valley Community Land Trust? I've been searching for it and can't find it.
I
require a comment from one of the board members from the trust who's in the public.
Logistically, they're not that, we can't do that. But Rhonda, do you have an answer to that perhaps?
I have an answer to it if it would help.
Okay.
I was going to ask Andrew to please follow up on that. Thank you.
It is valleyclt.org.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Other commissioners looking for raised hands? Nevada?
Good evening. Thank you for the presentation. I want to just lift up some of the comments that we heard from Ms. Jansen related to really, it seems, connecting with the neighborhood. And so can you share a little bit more about the thinking on the affordable targeting for the rental units? And just give us a little bit more color to the decision to place them all at the same all at 80% of the area median income?
Sure, happy to. So this has been in partnership with the city, and the city's undergone revisions to its BMR guidelines over the course of our project application. And we learned from community meetings and from conversations with the community that as many and as quickly as we can deliver BMR units is what was important. And so that's what we're trying to do, move as quickly as possible. And between our rental units and Valley Community Trust, hope to bring many more online. The decision to bring low income was actually not something we had exactly planned for. We had wanted to bring a mix of moderate, low, and very low. However, there's an inconsistency in the guidelines providing a cap to moderate income units that would put us out of compliance with the BMR guidelines. And so when we learned that, we revised our proposal to be all low-income rental units.
Can you share a little bit more about how the mechanics of that work? So are you saying that because of the 75% cap, market in the moderate category in particular is just too close, and so you needed to bring it down to 80, everything at 80? I'm trying to follow the technical part there.
Sure. So the guidelines state that the units have to be at low or an average of low income, and they can be provided through a mix of very low to moderate. The issue is if your moderate income units are capped, it's likely that you're not going to average to low. And so there's an inconsistency in the BMR guidelines that would put us out of compliance. And just to be upfront, our protection under SB 330 requires 100% compliance with code, and we're not able to change that.
Let me jump in.
So this is something, sorry, Ms. Grove, I just want to finish up on the line here. So this is something, and I'm wondering if Rhonda could turn on her camera. This is really a question for the city.
Sure. Hello, Commissioner Merriman, I'm here.
Hi. So this commission has wanted to look at some, make revisions to certain ordinances for a long time. And obviously the protections under SB 330 mean that we're not going to be able to do that for this project. What could be done for this particular project to stay in line with SB 330, but also provide a little bit more flexibility? I say that because for a family of four, you're looking at an income of no more than $140,000 for 80% of AMI. And that to me seems like the affordable units, frankly, just aren't very affordable. And I was hoping to see a little bit more of a mix of incomes. So I'm curious if you can help guide me to something that we could ask as a commission in terms of evaluating an alternative scenario related to affordability. And I suspect our commission doesn't have the ability to really condition our recommendation on that, but it would be something that I think from a policy perspective we need to consider, because a very low income unit has greater public benefit than ones that are targeted at the higher end of the income spectrum. And it's something that I really hope we can engage and have a conversation, even if it's pushing forward and other commissions or council is having that conversation.
Sure. So I'll just speak to the BMR proposal and the BMR guidelines. The community amenities is not something that I'll address with this, but under the BMR guidelines for rental housing, I think you already know the guidelines require that projects with 20 or more rental units are required to provide 15% of BMR units at the low income category, or they may submit an alternative mix of affordability that is approximately equivalent to low income. So that's really the parameters that we have to work in. So that alternative mix, so I'll use just a very simple example. So if a project had a requirement to provide 3 BMR units, and this is very simplified, there's more that goes into this, but if they had to provide 3 BMR units at low income, an alternative they might propose could be 1 unit at low income, 1 at very low, and 1 at moderate. And by running the calculations, that would likely be an equivalent. So that's a simplified response, but those are the kinds of things that we look at, that we receive sometimes from developers, that we analyze and look to see if it's an alternative. So that's what we have.
So given that the ordinance, thank you. So given that the ordinance is not really going to allow for the averaging, because we can't use the higher income units at moderate to offset the lower income ones, is it possible for a unit mix to be provided wherein you might see slightly fewer units, but at more deeply targeted affordability?
Currently, the BMR guidelines don't allow for that specifically, with the 15% inclusionary requirement. And I would also say that the equivalency is there's a component to market rate costs, the average market rate rents, that goes into that analysis. So as the market changes, that could change. In this scenario, at the point in time that we're looking at it and doing that analysis, I think, as Andrew Marcos has explained, it didn't work out. It didn't meet their requirements. But this scenario could work in a different circumstance, or in the future, or has worked in the past that may not work, for this project. So I'm not sure if that answers your question or not, but that's.
Well, I think it just would like to push a little bit more as to whether or not it's possible to have an alternative equivalent, or have the developer consider a second scenario that is more inclusive. Right now, it's a very small band of people that will be able to take advantage of a very precious amenity. And it also, I would just love to see affordable housing for people to have more choices at those income levels, whereas now many of the choices are in other deed restricted buildings that might be 100% affordable housing. I obviously think those are great, and it would be great for people to have more options. So thank you.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Can I jump the line here and just ask, does everyone fully understand why that 75% cap is bringing the project's mix out of compliance?
That was my question. So why don't I jump back in line and ask it? It seems to me that if market rate rents, let's say the problem is that market rate rents now equal the rent that a moderate income tenant would pay, that puts you out of compliance in what way? I guess then there's less subsidy for the moderate incomes. So you're not, then the subsidy for the moderate income units is 0. So how can you not go into compliance by adding some very low units to the mix?
So in that example, if market rate rents were equal to the low income rents, then the moderate rate rents, because of this clause in the guidelines, would actually have to be 75% of both the market rate rent and the low income rent. And that puts us out of compliance with the guidelines, because we would no longer average too low. The way the guidelines read, we have to average or be at low, and the 75% is likely to put that out of compliance.
I did not follow that. My understanding of our guidelines is that regardless of whether unit is, that you can, a moderate income unit can never charge rent that is greater than 75% of market rate rent. That's
Yes.
all.
Yes, that's right. But if that's done and the moderate and the market rate rent is below, let's say, low income, then all our BMR units will no longer average to the low income rent.
They'll average lower than the low income rent.
That's right.
So it's not a problem to be out of compliance at lower income, is it? You're exceeding expectation in that case.
Well, the BMR guidelines are not written that way.
Rhonda, can you confirm or deny? Confirm or explain that?
Andrew's correct. The BMR guidelines are written that way. They're stated as the rental unit shall be low income or an equivalent to low income.
Is it possible for us to, I mean, that seems cuckoo for us to prevent the situation where we serve more low income people?
I would say that's how the BMR guidelines are written. I think that we have our assistant city attorney is in our panelist. I'm not sure if she is available. Lee Prince. I don't know, Mike, if you're able to open Lee's mic. And Lee, if you're available, join us and help answer that question.
Good evening. Hi. Let me do my best here. So the BMR guidelines do require that at no point shall affordable rents be above 75% of market. So that was put in place at a time where that was necessary in order to preserve affordable rent for folks. I'm not sure I entirely follow the logic. I think that if they are if they provide 15% low income units, they are not out of compliance with our BMR guidelines, provided those low income units are at 75% or less of market rate. If they provide moderate income units as part of a mix, those moderate income units would have to be at 75%. Now, if that ultimately, because market rate rents fall and the low income units are even lower, I don't think they're out of compliance with our BMR guidelines. And I think that we need to separate the two notions. So one is what's required as far as they're required to charge rents that meet the low income guideline requirements, whether that's very low, or moderate, that can't exceed 75%. If they're providing an equivalent alternative, that's a little bit of a separate concept. And in all honesty, with deference to Rhonda's expertise here, I don't think our BMR guidelines completely preclude the notion that the council could approve an equivalent alternative that equaled 15% low income units, even if that did amount to deeper affordability levels, but provided the deeper affordability was equivalent to the 15% low income. But that's a council decision.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And you get the award for being an attorney who actually makes things perhaps easier and more sensible.
Thank you.
So I think there's a lot of interest among everyone who's spoken so far in seeing a mix of affordability in this project. And Can we just check in on with the committee? Am I correct that we have some sort of consensus around that, commissioners?
I'm sorry, consensus around what, Karen?
Around, well, the proposal is that all the BMR rental units will be low income, affordable to low income folks. And I'm hearing several voices, perhaps not quite a consensus, but several voices in support of expressing a strong preference for a mix of affordability levels in the BMR units.
Can we comment on that before?
Yeah. No, I'm asking. It's a question. I see that Nevada and Lauren and I don't know if those are raised hands or yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Wendy. We haven't heard from you yet.
I hear what everyone's saying, and we've spent all this time talking about these BMR units, and I think that's great. I think the developer's been in this for 2 years, and maybe the place to address this is on a broader scope, so the developer knows what he's looking at. This gentleman, Andrew, he did a great job, believes, and his company believes that they were operating on this separate set of circumstances for BMR units. So I'm just wondering if we don't address this next time around instead of changing the chairs in the middle of his situation.
Well, let me quickly ask Andrew if you'd be if the handcuffs were removed, would you be open to providing a mix of affordability? I mean, it was in your initial proposal, so.
If the 75% requirement were not there, we would be interested and open to providing a mix of affordability. Yes.
Go ahead, Nevada.
And if it was there, I mean, is it, are you open to looking at looking at a couple other scenarios? I hear what Commissioner McPherson is saying, and I know that Menlo Park does want to be a reliable and good partner to the development community and have clear rules to follow, since these projects take an enormous amount of risk and investment and time to bring to this place. So I thank Commissioner McPherson for bringing that point up. And I think there's a lot of people on this commission that agree with that. And if it did not change your overall schedule and you were able to provide an extra scenario, is that something that you could take a look at? And as this moves forward, have the appropriate bodies look at it and really just talk about it. The policy decisions and implications are very important.
I would say the crux of the issue is, in all deference to Lee as the city attorney, not all attorneys might agree with her interpretation, and our protections under SB 330 are critical to our project moving forward. However, I'm always open to conversation on new topics that will make our project better. And so if we can find a way to have our attorneys and the city feel comfortable, I am open to exploring a mix of affordability. But in our conversation so far, that seemed challenging. So I will leave it with, we're open to it.
I don't know who is next, Rachel or Lauren, but Lauren, you're pointing to Rachel. Rachel. You guys are doing the opposite in my screen.
I will be very brief. I'm going to make the same comment that I would have made had we not had this conversation, because and I'm very glad that we did have this conversation, but we are asked to opine on the terms of the BMR agreement. And, the staff report did an excellent job. Thank you, staff, for really framing this question for us. which is, you know, what are the existing housing needs in the community, documented housing needs in the community. And those two things are very important to keep it as part of the conversation. That includes the depth of affordability and also, as Commissioner Bigelow pointed out, the type of unit, the number of bedrooms that can accommodate a certain family size. So what I'm looking at is where can we combine those two things in at least one unit, where we can be serving a larger family size at a lower level of affordability. If we could achieve that in this project, you know, that's a top priority. And I feel charged to speak for that as a housing commissioner. And I also fully understand that for this project, you know, you're not just looking at what rents are today, you're looking at what rents are over years, and you need to be thinking about what the market rents will be over years. And so fully respectful of that position that the developer is in. At the same time, I'll leave my comment general that, you know, seeing an intersection of meeting both of those needs of a larger family size and lower affordability would lift this project, you know, to an even higher level, and that we would recommend.
Rachel, were you going to finish, or was that?
Oh, that was it. That was,
Okay.
I just passed the.
And I realized I was on mute when I was saying, Lauren, would you like to speak next?
All good. So just to clarify, we're saying low is between 50 to 80%, mod is 80 to 120, and very low is 30 to 50. Okay, and we have no very low, and we are looking to see if that is a possibility, or do we want to go even deeper than that? I think that if we did, it would be very difficult, just because, and bless you, Andrew, for dealing with all of our thought experiments on this. What I've seen working in the BMR world and affordable housing world has been that folks who are at ELI definitely need a place to live, and we should provide them. A lot of the time, the folks that are at extremely low income and potentially even very low need services, as well as needing a place to live. And so it's harder to provide those in a way that actually helps the resident grow their potential, or realize their potential in the unit, and kind of move on to the next stage of affordability. That is just completely anecdotal and from my experience administering these things. So I just wanted to put that out there. But from what I am hearing, we would like it if very low were possible in this mix. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Who are you asking, Lauren?
Collective commission. That is what people, I am hearing.
I'm hearing that too. So I affirm that. I think Rachel and Nevada have affirmed it. And I want to add to, or I want to sort of provide a counterpoint to what you just said, Lauren, about people who are extremely low income and very low income, typically needing services in order to achieve their potential. I don't agree with you. I think, yes, that can be true. For sure, many extremely low income people need services because it's crazy to live here, even if you're not extremely low income. However, I looked up some professions and some salaries, and let's see, a teacher is low income. A healthcare support staff, so a medical assistant, is at 45% AMI, so that's very low. The butcher at the grocery store, the cashier at the grocery store, 30% AMI, verging on extremely low income. I've had the same butcher and the same cashier in Menlo Park for years and years and years. So these are people who have steady jobs, I don't think that they need services. I know that some do, but I don't think we should exclude them from developments like this one, because some people with that income need services. An early childhood education staff person, we know how desperately we need those professions, make from, depending on what their level is, 35% of AMI to 63% of AMI. These are the essential workers that we need in our community. And I would love to find a way that this project can provide homes for them. So that's my little pitch for the mix of incomes. Nevada, you may speak.
Can I just clarify one thing really quick? Thank you, Nevada. Which is that what I'm saying is that folks that I have worked with at a mix of different jobs over several years have been, not across the board, but frankly, a lot of the times, folks below 30%, between 30 to 50, they're in fact better served. So if we have people who are in the very low income category and they can live where they work, that's amazing. Are we doing them a disservice by not just providing affordable housing at 30 to 50% AMI and saying BMRs are at low? How do people in the community feel? And that's what I was looking to get to.
I'm not sure I followed the last part.
Okay.
I mean, do you agree that people at very low and low income should have the option to, I mean, are you saying we shouldn't offer very low income because very low income people need services?
No, not
okay.
at all.
Okay.
Homes is always better than no homes.
And specifically in this project. Okay.
Yes, 100% having homes is more important than no homes. I am saying from a resident's perspective, I would also love it if we were able to provide services for folks in some other future opportunity down the line. That's all.
Thank you for clarifying. Nevada?
If we're ready, I'd like to just introduce one more concept that I have questions for the applicant on.
I am ready. It looks like everyone's ready.
Okay. So this is a different line of questioning really, but it's related to marketing and lease up because that's where you know, the units become somebody's home. Can you share a little bit about your marketing and lease up plans and procedures? And I'll share with you that what we have noticed on this commission is that sometimes it's a different team that we're interfacing with when it's actually time to do the lease up than you all on the front end. And right now is the time when you're making promises and commitments as you move your projects forward. And, you know, being cards up about this, I really want to have some commitments from your firm about being good neighbors and about running a very inclusive marketing and lease up process that's going to allow for the maximum number of people who live in Menlo Park now to be able to call your future community home. So with that, can you tell us a little bit about how you go about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll actually, you hit the nail on the head. I'm a developer, and once the project is finished, we work with our partners in property management. And so Doug Leventon, who you see on your screen, is from our property management arm and has a ton of experience with marketing and leasing BMR units. So I'll let him take that question.
Hi, everyone. So Doug Levinson, I've been in the industry since 2008, have quite an extensive background in affordable housing units, tax credit conversions, below market rate programs. But we really, truly want to serve the community here and want to serve as many residents of Menlo Park as we can. Typically, we try to market, identify like a 3-week marketing window. We'll work with the city to identify as many community outreach programs, churches, teachers, anyone that we think will, meet the requirements that we're looking for. Yeah, we've had an extensive history working with BMR programs in various cities from Oakland, Berkeley. We're actively running a BMR program in Sunnyvale right now. So we've got a pretty extensive history, and we really want to partner with the city to make this a successful project. Really, we're looking for you guys for direction of how we can make this successful. And we really want to make this a win for Menlo Park.
Thank you for sharing that. My employer is an affordable housing developer, and although I'm not responsible myself for day-to-day lease-up, I have overseen lease-up before in the neighborhood, and I can share the salient parts of that experience. What our experience showed us is that in many places, we needed to really interrogate our property management procedures in order to make sure that they not only pass fair housing, but also so they don't have disparate impacts. And this is part of a bigger conversation about what's housing's role in opening doors or shutting them and creating opportunity or not. But the couple places where I think it was really clear to us where we would need to make some changes were related to what is the minimum income that you need in order to be considered for a particular unit. And there are some industry metrics for that, and we lowered that to 2 times the rent. So if you make double the rent, in everyday person speak, if your income is equivalent to double the rent, we will get into a lease-up agreement with that individual or family. And the other place, and it's more typically you see 2.5 or even more at some of the bigger national companies that seem to have very strict procedures. And the other place that we needed to really look at was related to reasonable accommodations and tenant screening for credit and criminal. And so, Rhonda, this might be a question for you, but is there a way that we can articulate some of the key terms related to whether or not it's going to be relatively, if it's really going to be a process that I think will work for Menlo Park?
Sure. So just a little bit about that. Our new BMR housing administrator will be working with all developers that have inclusionary units to help work with them, providing technical assistance, looking at their marketing plans for BMR units, their tenant, their lease-up processes, their documents, assisting them with the lottery, tenant selection. So they'll be working very closely with all developers going forward through that process, as well as city staff. So city staff works closely with Huskies to advise them. We also hope to make some minor updates to our BMR agreements to capture a few of these changes that relate to the new kind of partnership in working with the BMR administrator.
Yeah,
in your opinion, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. To the previous comments, we've had to adjust screening criteria, depending on, which city we're in and, average median income. So I don't think anything that Nevada's suggesting is out of line or anything like that. We can definitely work with what she's suggesting.
I wanted to just add some input that I got from a community member, from a head of a community organization, Nuestra Casa. And she suggested that one of the ways to work with tenants in a screening in way is have as an alternative to credit history or whatever, is an actual short interview with the tenant and with the tenant's previous landlord. So I would like to just put that out there as a suggestion from the community, and for that to be effective, that would have to be language inclusive. And then the other thing I wanted to say, and this may be state law, but I would hope that income does not discriminate against Section 8 vouchers, that Section 8 vouchers would be considered income just like any other income.
No, per the state of California, if you participate in a BMR program, you do have to legally accept Section 8 vouchers. So.
Rhonda, I understand that a lot of these finer points will be articulated in agreements that either come up later, but is there a logical place that makes sense for you to lift these up as this project moves forward as items that, if we have commissioner consensus or things that can be stated that our recommendation is related to a marketing and lease-up plan that is really welcoming of the neighborhood, and if my previous comment also resonates with commissioners, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I heard your comments and captured those, and I would assure you that we as staff are already working with all the developers coming online to do the things that you mentioned, to review marketing plans, tenant lease-up processes. And so what I mentioned is we will also be trying to capture some of the higher points of that in our BMR agreements to make sure that that's included in there.
Thank you. And I think thank you to the advocates that worked with me and were patient with me years ago, that opened my eyes to just how many people would be denied a precious resource if we didn't take a closer look at how to modify these policies. And from an operations perspective, it has not led to a project that's unsustainable or that can't pay its bills. So I want to thank the members of the Belhaven community. Thank you.
I feel like I was going to say something, it just escaped me. Go ahead, Lauren. And oh, sorry, John, we haven't heard from you. I'm going to call on you first.
I just had, I wanted to echo Nevada's point about making sure that the marketing and lease-up is sensitive to and in touch with the community. I think that's an obvious improvement that I'm sure everybody supports. In regards to the previous discussion about the mix of income levels for BMR in a big project like this, I'm very supportive of the project. I'm also very supportive of having a mix of BMR levels. However, I am concerned on the procedural point that Wendy made, and that is, if we're going to do this to every developer who comes through the door and kind of get to this stage of the process and put additional requirements into the mix, I think that's troubling for the predictability point that Wendy made. We want developers to be able to invest here and know what they're getting themselves into at the beginning of the process. So I would encourage the commission to think about going, actually, if we want to have a different mix of income levels or a different number of bedrooms or whatever the case may be, let's put that in our ordinance, or ask the city council to put it in our ordinance. Or let's at least put it in our program guidelines that we publish for developers to read when they're considering where they want to invest their time and effort. And then there would be a level of specificity that would make this commission more comfortable that we're accomplishing our goals, but there would be a set of rules that the developers would have understood at the initiation of their development.
Commissioner Pimentel, I agree with that and at the same time, I just can't really get behind an 80% of average when the neighborhood is more at 55%. It just doesn't seem welcoming enough. Our own policies are standing in the way of, I think, a sensible mix. So, you know, if there is a way to ask the developer to kind of see the issue that we have and voluntarily propose to do a little secondary analysis to look at something else to really be able to have that conversation, that's really what I'm asking. SB 330, it does not allow a lot, does not really allow a whole lot of whatever it is that we're talking about right now. So this would be not something that I believe, and I'm not an attorney, but have a little experience on this, and it doesn't seem like it is something that can be required, but I sure would see it as a good partnership move to take a closer look at especially the neighborhood, but all of Menlo Park, and really just see if they could get a mix that hits the mark a little bit closer in terms of being welcoming.
Well, and I think we're in agreement, Nevada. That's exactly what I'm saying. Let's not let our policies get in the way of our objectives. So if the policy needs to change, let's spend some time trying to change the policy so that it applies universally, or at least, or you know, maybe we do it by neighborhood or by type of project. You know, the matrix could be endless in terms of trying to figure every potential permutation of what we want to do. So I defer to your point, actually, that some amount of flexibility and negotiation is appropriate. But to the extent we really want to have these policy goals change and need to stay in compliance with state law, we could provide additional guidance, I guess, in our program guidelines.
I just want to say that I think we are in vehement agreement about updating our BMR guidelines to achieve what you're saying, John. That's, Rhonda can't wait to get that done, if I can speak for her. And I see that Rachel has her hand up.
I also saw that Lauren had her hand up at some point. So
Real quick, just on what Nevada said about doing 2.5 times income for screening. What I found when I was administering these programs was that a lot of times you needed to be at 2 times, really, just so that you could actually meet the full income spread that you're trying to serve, because you want to serve people at 50, 60, 70, 80, every which way. And so one of the concerns for property management is, of course, how do you make sure that people are able to pay that? So one of the things that we did, and I just wanted to throw out there, was if people presented their previous leases that were at market rates and they were for more than a year, then that would be one of the ways in which people would be able to have that lower to prove that they were able to pay, rather than having that. And if that could be part of an appeals process, something like that, where people are able to say, I was denied because of my credit, something happened years ago and is still on my report, but here's the plan that I have to fix that. Something along those lines would be great. And also, do you know if you're going to have a buffer between certification and recertification?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So you're speaking my language, but yeah, we're comfortable going to 2 times the rent, just for the committee's record, but we have a different screening process for people in a below market rate program versus our market rate units. So we have a kind of a much wider forgiveness scale for people who have bad debt or medical debt or bankruptcy. So we give them a much wider window of forgiveness. So we've got a much more extensive BMR program going in Sunnyvale right now. And I understand, obviously different average medium incomes, but we've had a very low denial rate. It's actually most of our applicants are over income. So I think we've done a very good job of marketing who we're trying to target and the people who are going to benefit from this program. And I think we can repeat that in Menlo Park.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for the record, when I worked with you guys in Mountain View, you were fantastic. And so thank you so much for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rachel, did you have a question?
No, in the interest of time, I will see.
All right. Well, I wanted to ask what rent are you planning to target? Like, assuming that we're low income BMR, and there's a range of low incomes. And so what is your target rent? And I'm hoping that Nevada will do the follow-up on this question because this is your department.
Yeah, absolutely. I apologize. I don't have our most recent pro forma rents. I know we did this based on last year's rents that were released. So I apologize. I don't have that off. I can just certainly distribute that after this meeting.
I'm sorry, Chair, are you asking for the BMR rents or the market rate rents?
The BMR rents.
Okay, so the latest BMR rents I have from the city for low income, one person, a studio would be $24.40. One bedroom would be $26.14. Two bedroom would be $31.37, and a three bedroom would be $36.25.
I don't know how to assess that. What I'm looking for is it at the high end of the range, but you got that from Menlo Park? That's not. Rhonda, fill me in, please.
So yeah, we calculate the annual incomes based on the area median incomes that are published for San Mateo County each year that come from Department of Housing and Community Development. Mm-hmm. So that's and then from there we calculate the maximum rent payment by income category, whether it's extremely low, very low, low, moderate, by unit size. So we calculate that rent. So those were the rents that Andrew just read off to you. So those are the maximum rents by those unit sizes for the low income categories.
Okay, well that was exactly my question for the developer, for you, Andrew, is that's the maximum, but what are you planning to charge?
Oh, will it?
If you charge the maximum, you've got a little sliver of people who have an income that's low enough to qualify for the unit, but high enough to be able to afford the rent.
We charge the rents that are sent to us by the city, and they are the maximum rents for that income category.
Okay.
So that I think, I mean, just logically speaking, I mean, that's another argument for doing a bit of a mix, is that you're able to, you don't end up with this very super narrow marketing band that you're trying to do. Your capture rate is more reasonable, and we have also seen at my employer that it is less risk for us in some ways, because at the lower levels of affordability, there's a lot of demand, and the higher you push that up, an 80% of AMI unit is looking a lot like market these days. So there are some benefits to looking at the mix that may reveal themselves to you as you look into the exercise, should we decide to go that route.
Yeah, I would say that those rents do not serve the impacted community of Belhaven. I mean, a one bedroom at $2,600, that doesn't seem like a BMR rent to me. And I think there are systemic problems because the AMI is from 2019 that we're working with right now. And that is just not accurate. And so I would hope that you could anticipate and adapt it. I mean, just, but then I know you have your pressures as well, but the reality is it's not, it may be in compliance, but it's not serving the purpose. I saw Wendy and then John.
Yeah. Karen, you referred to 2019 rents, and maybe that data is old data. I would make the case that, as Andrew said, the rents are down now between 25 and 30% in Menlo Park.
Yeah, I was referring to income.
So the fact that they're even, I sort of handed to them by moving forward on this project with the rents low like that, and they're facing, what, 400 units to rent when the market's dropped 30%. So I think we need to think about that too.
Yeah, I was referring to area median income, which has dropped a lot, but it's not reflected in the official area median income that we're keying our rents off of. So that's
yeah. And if I could,
yes,
if I could, I spent like several days looking into some of this last year, and we're just in a really strange market. So first of all, the area median incomes are high because the rents have been high. That's the way that flows. So until rents go down, area median incomes won't go down. And then there's a lag of several years. So we're going to see, not this year and maybe not next year, but by 2020, by the time they put out the 2023 rates, that's when you would see the lag of what's happening now. And that's just the imperfections in the system that we're using. So I'll let Mr. Morco say if there's a little bit more to that, but we're in a little bit of an unfortunate time where it's still assuming really high rents and high area median incomes, which means that it's just an enormously huge amount of people now that fall into this low income category. But then there's a lot of pressure to make those rents work, mostly for Mr. Morco. So I think it's a bit of a tumultuous time to kind of position a project like this relative to the input.
Which, if you don't, go ahead, Rachel, but that does lead into another question I had, sort of getting us in a different direction. So Rachel, you go first.
Well, is it still related to the AMI level served by this project?
So yes, you go first.
Well, because I was trying to attempt a sort of closing comment on that, but I don't want to close the conversation.
Please.
No, I'm listening to the comments from Commissioner Pimentel, for example, which I also look forward to changing adapting the BMR guidelines. And I agree that I think we're dealing with two questions as a body. One is this project compliant? And the other is this project capable of being anything more than the bare minimum compliant? And, that's kind of where this conversation is happening. And so I think that in terms of compliance, I don't think there's much of an argument here with what we currently have. I also think that, just for the record, we can adapt our BMR guidelines over and over again. There's always going to be a project there's always a level of subjectivity that's required, which is why this is so difficult. Otherwise, I mean, if we could check a box, then we wouldn't be here discussing this tonight, right? I mean, it would just, by the numbers, it would be a compliant project. So to try to reset the tone a little bit, I think we want to be realistic in what we're saying, and I want to clarify also that I'm not saying that I think this project is out of compliance. It's more a question of can we achieve a little bit more, and would it be preferable to achieve a little bit more? Yes. I think that's the tone of this conversation.
I agree. And the question that is seemingly unrelated that I wanted to ask is, how long do you plan to own and operate this development? I'm sure you are aware of the angst that people are feeling about your sale of the Elan apartments to Stanford. And I noticed that you also sold another of your Redwood City developments, you sold to another real estate investment firm. but I also understand that typically you do own and operate your developments for the long term. So what is your expectation for this project?
We expect to be the managers at this location, and investors intend to own for the long term. However, I can't kind of guarantee any of that. It's dictated by the market, the condition of investors of Greystar, and so on. And then just on the Redwood City sale to Stanford, that's an exceedingly rare occurrence. And so I would just kind of
Okay.
let that out there.
Okay. So what if that's the case, then I don't know your investors, but what if they're patient money, then perhaps you could give a little in the near term, because to Nevada's point, this will come back into balance at some point. And in fact, it is more balanced now. It's just that the official numbers are not reflective of reality in terms of people's incomes. So just to support the desire that we've all expressed for deeper affordability and a mix of affordability, and also expanding your window of who can actually afford the BMR units and qualify, that I guess I'd like for us to, of course, it's absolutely compliant and you're adding a lot of homes, and that's awesome. There's a lot to like here, but I think we just hope to get a little bit of a better fit between the BMR units and the community they are intended to serve, who will be deeply impacted by this project.
So I think, we're following the guidelines set by the city. And so I think that's to start. We are open to considering a mix of income levels if we can get around the legal issues brought up by our attorneys. And then as far as kind of what the rent is going to be for these BMRs 2 years in the future, I wish I knew. There's just no way to know where that will be.
Okay, let's see. I had some other questions. Kurt, I see your hand. Is that a raised hand? Go ahead.
Yep, that's a raised hand. I don't want to rain on the parade here, but I own rental units in Menlo Park, and I've done so since 1989. And when 1999 the dot bomb hit, rents dropped by a third in those days as well. It took 12 years for rents to come back. I pray that is not going to be the case right now. But I'm genuinely fearful this thing could get half built and then the plug gets pulled and we have half built projects. It's never happened in the peninsula, in the Bay Area, but I've seen it in a lot of other cities around the world, and I'm fearful.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would just say I hope our track record in the Bay Area speaks for itself. We've built completed projects in San Jose, Sunnyvale, Mountain View, Menlo Park, Redwood City. We have several. There is nothing in our bones and our soul that would ever kind of stop us. We don't give up. So I would be shocked if these projects didn't get done, if we're approved.
I have a question about the ownership units. Would it be all right for everybody to move on to that? Okay, so the community really, really, really wants BMR ownership units, and so I'm really grateful for this project bringing 6 of them to bear. I would love to have at least one of them be affordable to a low-income family. And what I'm wondering is your rounding up of the 0.45 BMR unit and adding it to the number of rental units. Would you consider instead taking that cost and applying it to one of the affordable purchase units instead so that we can offer the community one low income affordable purchase unit?
So I think this actually goes to what Commissioner Curtis just mentioned. We're not in a position to make substantial changes to our proposal today, unfortunately. So
Okay.
I don't think that's,
And we are not in a position to be able to demand it in any way, but between now and the time it gets to city council, is that something you would consider?
I on this particular subject, I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. So we're willing to look at the mix of affordability on the rental project, on the townhomes for sale. It's not something that's going to be possible for us.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from other commissioners? Okay, are we ready to form some sort of motion? Nevada is nodding. Nevada, do you want to try to form a motion that sort of expresses some of the things we've talked about?
So we're making a recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
That's recommending the project subject to more specificity needed for consideration by the Planning Commission and City Council. One, a voluntary scenario 2 that is that's an affordability mix that would be an alternative equivalent, and 2, articulating some of the marketing policies that we discussed today. And I'm not sure if anyone has anything else, but those are the 2 I had.
I have one more corollary to the motion that as far as the developer benefits are concerned, if we could have staff and the developer find some level of activity for the Valley Community Land Trust that would be required in terms of projects done or dollars spent or something. So
well, actually,
we have not talked about that at all yet. And
that'll be, we don't make a recommendation about that, but we will have a discussion about that next.
Oh, I didn't realize that was happening either. Thank you for clarifying that.
Oh yeah, sorry. Do you want to wait and do, so why don't you, okay, I like your motion, Nevada. I think it's really clear. Should we table it until we talk about let's table it until we talk about the community amenities, just in case it informs our motion in any way. Let's see, I'm just looking at my chair notes to make sure I'm not veering out of, I think I'm okay. All right, so community amenities. Let's open up a conversation about that because we have been asked to opine, even though we have no authority to recommend or otherwise. Rachel, your hand is up. No? Okay. Who wants to start? John.
I'm delighted to see that there's an effort to make community amenities. Setting aside some office space feels not very useful to the community that's going to be impacted by this project. If the new land trust that seems to have been recently organized is one that is going to be well-funded and active and producing a lot of projects, then I can see community benefit out of giving them office space. My concern in this case just was, it seemed like an awfully high value to place on some office space, and it also didn't seem as though there was any sort of standard around what this the community, the land trust was supposed to do, or how they were supposed to do it. Not that we necessarily need to get into regulating that, but it would be a shame if this ends up being an empty office that doesn't really produce much.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that maybe staff can grapple with.
To your point, I do have some questions that maybe there are answers to that would address your observation, John.
Thanks.
So really nuts and bolts. So what are the outcomes for the community from the VCLT proposal in terms of homes and timeline and affordability? What outcomes can we expect for the $8.9 million?
So just under 5 million of value is from the office. And just to go into a little bit of detail on how that will operate, Valley Community Land Trust will occupy a small portion of that and be able to rent out the remainder of the space to other nonprofits in Menlo Park, and use that income to continue funding the preservation of housing in Bellhaven and surrounding Menlo Park neighborhoods with a focus on Bellhaven. And so it does provide the long-term benefit of rent to, revenue to fund ongoing investment in the community. The remaining 4.4 million, I believe, is due upon building permit and could be distributed immediately into the community to acquire and in certain appropriate cases add ADUs or bring the homes up to code standard, and then rent them out at the affordability that the board decides. And I think it's important to note that the board is made up of 3 groups of people. First group of 3 is people who are living in the community land trust homes, so by their nature in the community. The second are community leaders, respected leaders who have the best interests of the community at heart. The third are technical experts who can help ensure the ongoing operation of the community land trust. And so there's multiple pieces of the community land trust. I think one of the critical things is, whereas the deed restriction on the multifamily and townhomes is 55 years, the CLT is in perpetuity. So these will forever be within, as long as the board decides so, will be forever within the control of the local community and prevent displacement, offer tenant services, a lot more than frankly a lot of BMRs are able to offer in keeping people in the communities where they're from and preventing that displacement that we know is happening.
Okay, so what exactly is the service area of VCLT?
We're open to your suggestions there. If it wants to be, if the funds that we donate are confined to Bellhaven, we and VCLT would be open to that.
And who can join the CLT as a member and therefore have a vote in electing the board?
That is up for discussion with the city, and the Housing Commission can opine on how they would like that board to be formed. But the important thing is that it is of the community. And so I would expect at a minimum, a significant portion of membership has to be residents of Bellhaven.
Okay. And who's on staff right now?
At the moment, Pam Dorr is operating the VCLT with 3 identified founding board members.
And where do the board members live?
So Delia lives in Bellhaven, Joshua lives in Menlo Park, and Diane also lives in Menlo Park.
So Bellhaven is Menlo Park. So where do the 2 board members who you did not say live in Bellhaven live?
Suburban Park and Menlo Oaks.
Okay, So they don't live in the service area, presumably, of the CLT.
At the moment, the founding board has one person from Bellhaven, but is always in search of more and would take recommendations for local Bellhaven residents to join the board and hopefully take advantage of the offerings.
Yeah, so I'm just a little confused because I think CLTs are very, very exciting, just like you outlined. So I'm studying up on them. And my understanding is that really, really crucial things to lay out at the beginning are what is the service area and what is the membership? And so I'm just, you know, can those be different things? So I think what you're saying is, and pardon my dog, let me close the door, hold on. I think what you're saying potentially is that the service area will be Bellhaven and the community will be Menlo Park. The community elects the board. And so I'm just concerned about what Julie Shanson said about Bellhaven being a community that has been done to. And my belief is that there's a lot of leadership capacity within the community, that it may take some time to build that leadership capacity, that a community land trust could be a fantastic vehicle for Bellhaven self-determination, but that it has to come from Bellhaven, if that's what it's going to be. So I'm a little concerned that 2 of the 3 community board members don't live in Bellhaven, and that we don't have crisp answers to what is the service area, how many homes, in what time frame, and you know who are the members. Like if all of Menlo Park gets to elect the board, the community board members of the Bellhaven CLT, I don't think that's really what we envisioned.
No, and that's I don't think what we're intending either. As the founding board of 3 people, it's not a full board yet. Both stated that it has to reflect the local community it's serving, and so eventually, if that's what's directed by the local community, it will need to be Bellhaven residents. So the reason we can't have crisp answers for this is because a community land trust does not exist in Menlo Park yet, has not been funded. We are admittedly kind of, at least in Menlo Park, at the leading edge of this. It has been proven time and time again nationally and throughout the Bay Area. And I think it's important to recognize that equity and the reflection of the community that it serves is of utmost importance. So I hear you loud and clear. I think the CLT hears you loud and clear that the membership and the board need to be not overly, very representative, if not exclusively representative of Bellhaven.
Okay. Let me see, looking at my notes. So that ground floor that you're proposing be rented. So I noticed that the BAE independent analysis of the value of the ground floor space that you would be renting, they came up with a different conclusion that was $1.5 million lower value than what you propose the value to be. And so I'm wondering if Tom could perhaps speak to that and educate us all on that.
Yeah, so after the proposal came in from Greystar, the city did hire BAE to do an independent evaluation to ensure that what was proposed for the office space and the lump sum contribution to VCLT would match the $8.9 million requirement for the community amenity. And the outcome of that study was that, as Chair Grove stated, they believed that it was actually short by about 1.55 million. And the reasons for that were that in the initial accounting in the proposal, there were some things such as parking spaces being dedicated to the office use, and certain things like tenant improvement costs and things that would typically be built into a lease for the space were sort of being double counted under the proposal. And so that's why there ended up being a gap of about $1.55 million between the proposal and what the BAE study found. And so Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the proposal would be to take that $1.55 million gap that was identified, and that would be added as the lump sum, added to the lump sum contribution towards VCLT. And so that's why it would increase to about $4.4 million.
Okay, so that's been taken into. What about the other thing that they mentioned was the idea that part of the value was the future rent to VCL, paid to VCLT by other nonprofits that may rent space from them, and that was actually transferring the cost of the community amenity from Greystar to local nonprofits serving Menlo Park. Was
right.
that also
right.
compensated for?
That was also part of the study, and essentially, yes, it would be, it would sort of push the obligation onto other nonprofits who would be renting space from VCLT, and the payments would be going to them. And so BAE determined that that wasn't really a fair accounting of that, and that contributed to the gap as well.
Okay. And so, Andrew, you're in agreement with all of that? And
I wouldn't go that far, but I am accepting BAE's analysis, and we are willing to apply that $1.5 million difference to direct investment into Belhaven housing to prevent displacement.
okay. What else would you do with that ground floor if it weren't dedicated? Oh, I see Rachel has her hand raised. Well, I'll just go ahead. I'll ask this question, then I'll pass it to you, and then I have more questions. But what else would you do? What else could you put homes on the first floor? What are the other possible uses for that space? Can you describe it to us?
Yeah, it is 2,940 square feet. It's on the corner of the building facing Constitution, and has glass frontage. It's a really nice space. If it is identified as non-residential space in the EIR, and so it would have to stay non-residential space. And as far as the uses, I would envision it to be support services for nonprofits in the area, and almost like a pod of various nonprofits who maybe work with each other or can work together to better the lives of people in Belhaven specifically. If there were to be kind of a change of use to, I'm not sure if this is possible, but I don't know that we could change it to housing that particular space.
Okay. Rachel, did you have a question?
I had a comment.
Okay.
If you still have questions, I can hold my comment.
Well, okay, my I guess overarching question is, this is not, a community land trust was not on the list of community amenities. So what I hear you saying is that the community land trust is a way to respond to the community amenities line item that says more affordable housing as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's right. I've heard a couple one thing I've heard over and over again about the community amenities list is that it doesn't reflect what the community wants today. And so it was a challenge to identify something that the community wanted, but that also could be interpreted as consistent with the community amenity list. And we find that the affordable housing through the community land trust that is high quality and integrated into the community fits that description.
Mhm. Okay, Rachel, I'm gonna go to you now. Thank you.
Well, that actually was going to be my comment, was exactly that, this bonus community amenities business is difficult, because it's not exact. But in evaluating whether or not this is a suitable amenity, to the extent that our evaluation matters, and it only does for the expression of our opinion as housing commissioners, I also was trying to fit this CLT model into that community amenity on that list, because that's what we're beholden to, um, in exchange for additional density, in the project. And it's difficult to even go there as a housing commissioner, because I think you'll find a lot of support for community land trusts on the housing commission. But I am also obligated to think about this in terms of adding affordable housing units, and whether or not this this amenity as proposed will fulfill that. That's aside from the valuation issue, which seems to have been resolved. So, it's a difficult call, but given the framework that we've been given as a city with that list, it's kind of difficult to fit this in, and to think of it as a community amenity, instead of a CLT in a totally different context.
I have a bold question. Would you consider a scenario 3? Because I know there was scenario 1, which is BCLT as a community amenity. Scenario 2 is money for the community center. Scenario 3 is additional low-income affordable ownership units in your project.
Unfortunately not, no.
Can you explain why not? I mean, I think that is exactly what the community wants. They want more affordable housing, they want ownership housing, and they want it soon. And I think your project is going to be quicker than building up a community land trust.
Well, I actually disagree. So the dollars for the community land trust will be distributed immediately into buying housing. And our housing takes, 12 to 24 months to build. So it will prevent displacement where it's happening quicker. And the reason why we can't change our BMR proposal at this point is we've been at this for 3 years now, and are following guidelines and as closely as humanly possible, and are in the midst of a pandemic and a downturn where the future of these projects is has been hard to push forward. So that is a significant change to the investment. So we're unable to do that.
Okay, so another couple of questions then about the community amenity that you're proposing. If that goes forward, would you transfer the BMR units from your project into the community land trust?
No.
Again, explain your thinking.
Well, the BMR units in the multifamily and townhome project would be administered by the city's program.
Mhm.
And VCLT is a separate entity.
Okay. Another thought is I feel like VCLT is a great idea, except that it didn't come out of Belhaven. And so I'm wondering if there's a way to structure this community amenity, if it goes forward as such, in terms of a planning grant of, I don't know, I run a foundation, $200,000 for 2 years to explore whether Bellhaven wants a community land trust and whether Bellhaven has the capacity to create a community land trust. And if it does, and if it does want a community land trust and is willing, to find the leadership to be on the board and make it work, then the rest of the community amenity funds are in trust to fully fund it. I mean, this loses 2 years of acquiring homes, I realize, but I just, it feels a little bit like we're blind. In $8.9 million is a lot to give to an organization that we don't really know a lot about. So I'm struggling a little bit. I'm trying to make it work. I'm gonna just let that sit there and see if anybody else has anything to say, because it wasn't a question, it wasn't a comment.
So Chair Grove, in light of the hour, I have a motion that's on the table for right now. It's recommending the project move forward subject to specificity needed for consideration by Planning Commission and City Council. And are you in a position to gently word a third consideration that's related to what seems like a desire for additional study of this concept to see if it will work as a community amenity? Seems like it's
Right. Okay. So I like what you just said. Additional study to see. Oh, Rachel's saying something. No?
I'm asking if we can do that.
Can we do that? I think that might be separate to the motion, actually. It might just be, I don't know. Add to the motion that the Housing Commission has reservations about putting $8.9 million into Valley Community Land Trust, given what we know, that we would like to see more specificity in the outcomes for Bellhaven and the leadership, the path towards, I don't know. I just really, I don't live in Bellhaven. I feel very, very uncomfortable moving forward with something that is for Bellhaven, but not led by, well, I don't see the, go ahead, Nevada, help me.
Ms. Kaufman, should we keep it to the two considerations and then separately provide some input as to the reservations that we've heard as to whether or not this is, I mean, it's on a lot of levels. Is this a community benefit that works, given that we have something from our previous general plan process and this use isn't on it? It's what is the relationship expected to be with the community? So there's a lot of good questions being asked, and I think it's also a very, very good idea. But Rhonda, can you help us get where we need to go here?
And I know Planner Tom Smith popped on there, and I think our Assistant City Attorney is still with us. So I'll take a go at the response, and then if they have anything to add, I will ask them to do so. But yeah, I think that the Housing Commission is being asked to make a motion, a recommendation on the BMR terms as they are proposed, and that could come, that motion could be amended from how it's stated in the staff report to include some of the other items that you added. The community amenities, while you've had good discussion on it, and certainly your feedback can be provided to the developer and could be asked maybe to move along with some of the discussion that moves forward. I don't think there would be an action from the Housing Commission or a recommendation or a formal recommendation on that, but I would leave it to, I would guess, if Lee is still on the line, to correct me if that doesn't sound right, or if there's another way to go about it.
Yeah. Thanks, Rhonda. I think that's accurate. And the idea, I think, for your thoughts on the community amenity piece would just be to ask staff to include a discussion in the staff report regarding your comments when it goes back to Planning Commission next, and then Council eventually.
Okay. very good. So let's take the motion that Nevada proposed earlier, which is to recommend the BMR terms with increased specificity. And you had great words, Nevada. Hopefully you have them written down. Do we need it repeated? If not, can I get a second?
Well, maybe Mike can repeat it. Can Mike say it or?
Sure, Matt. And if I may, Madam Chair, so the condition that I have is that the applicant look at the mix of affordability, potentially including very low, specifically units for those rental units, to be presented to the Planning Commission and or City Council. So, and I can
as an alternative equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
Understood.
Right. And to outline
the second piece is related to just key terms for marketing policies.
Mm-hmm.
If they could articulate those, and what our conversation was today, I was relieved to hear that they are in tune with kind of where the industry is, and I hope that means that they'll be great partners. So I don't have reservations based on the conversation we just had, but think it's important enough that we lift it up.
Okay, understood.
Okay. So the motion is that they move forward with those best practices articulated, Nevada?
That we articulate the key marketing policies related to minimum income, reasonable accommodations for credit and criminal, et cetera. I mean, they can, those are the two that I was honed in on, but there may be a couple others that they are willing to articulate in kind of a basic term sheet or something like that.
All right. How's that, Mike?
Yeah, I've got it on my end. So I think we're good. I can read it back if needed, but I think we've got it covered, and we'll move that forward in the motion.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, let's do a roll call vote on this one. Let me see where my notes are. Okay, Commissioner Bigelow.
Aye.
Commissioner Conroy.
I'm abstaining.
Commissioner McPherson.
No.
Commissioner Merriman.
Aye.
Commissioner Pimentel.
Aye.
Commissioner Horst.
Aye.
And I vote yes. So the motion passes. Ooh, all right. We are supposed to take a break after 2 hours, which was 35 minutes ago. I could use a 5-minute break. Would that be all right with everybody? Okay, see you at 9:10.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If everyone can disengage their webcams, and I will put that we are on a break. Thank you.
Oof.
Okay, sorry, we're late. 9:13. We should be back. Is everybody here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Rhonda, I don't see you, and Mike, I don't see you. Are you back with us? Yes. Okay. Let us carry on. Thank you for your patience with me being late. Do I have, oh no, where are we? We're on item D4 now, which is recommendation of below market rate housing agreement term sheet with SP, my thing cuts off, Menlo LLC for 111 Independence Drive. And we'll have a presentation first from staff and Sativ Kadivar. Welcome, Payal.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. I would like to invite Sativ Kadivar to provide an overview of the project, following which I will give a brief presentation on the staff report and staff recommendation. So, Sativ, turning over to you.
That works a little better. Can everybody hear me now? Yes, and everybody sees the screen? Okay. I don't know about you all, but I'm on my second cup of coffee. God bless you all for the endurance. Started off with some iced coffee, and now we've graduated to the warm stuff. So I know some of you, by way of introduction, my name is Sativ Kadivar. I'm the representative for the ownership family. We are a local family. I grew up in Menlo Park, went to Oak Knoll, Hillview, and Menlo Atherton back in the day. I have 4 kids, the oldest of which is a freshman at the current version of online Zoom MA. So we're, quite familiar with this location. It's been an office building that I have driven to for the last 20 odd years. So all that is to say, we know the area quite well. I want to give you a brief bit of history. Hopefully this helps as we go through tonight. We started discussions with planning staff November of 2016 when Connect Menlo was being finalized, believe it or not. The first conceptual plans were submitted in March 2017, so nearly 5 years ago. We have had 3 full-blown planning commission study sessions, June of 2018, June of 2019, and just last month, January of 2021. And like the prior project, we have the EIR, which comment period closed yesterday. Needless to say, throughout all of those hearings, we received a lot of input on the BMR component. The development of the BMR proposal has likewise been a long process. I actually reached out to Commissioner Grove back in April of 2018 to get a sense of goals and hot buttons. And I remember her remarking that at the time that she had wished more property development folks kind of, reached out early in the process. I must say, from what I've seen on all the other projects, I think you've seen a marked shift in that regard. So I think people are thinking about it way, way earlier than maybe they did back in the day. Okay, so I will, in the interest of time, keep things moving here. Oh no. Okay, there we go. I think there might be a lag. I'm on the second slide. Everybody see that? Yep. Okay. So this is the location. It's quite a prominent location, in my opinion, in Menlo Park. It's 101 and Marsh Road. So this here is 101. and this is the curve of Independence. So in a lot of ways, it's almost an introduction, a gateway to the city, depending on where you're coming from, off of 101. And this Bohannon project is pretty prominent and pretty pronounced with the architectural, with the curve. So we did not want this project to be the standard rectilinear design. So a lot of thought went in, a lot of effort went into making this design turn into a yin and yang effect. So you've got the curve of Gateway project speaking really nicely with the curve that we have here. And again, I think that's just some of the pride and the attachment and understanding of this location. Briefly on the project details, this is all about improving jobs, housing, and balance. We are demolishing 15,000 square feet of office space, not adding a single square foot of office space, even though such is allowed within the RMU. 105 total units, predominantly one bedroom and studio, so roughly 90%, and a fair amount of open space as well. Quite an environmentally progressive project as well. You can see minimal auto parking. The ratio is near 1-to-1. Whereas the bike parking is 1-to-5. It's an all-electric building, and 20% of the parking is EVSE out of the gates, while 100% of them are wired for EV in the future. I mentioned the input gathered on BMR. I think I heard a little bit of this over the last 2.5 hours as well. I heard a lot about the desire for multiple income levels. Housing units actually being built rather than in lieu fees, the units being, integrated within the building. You all understand these concepts of distributed and everything appearing the same. Just to highlight some of the meat of the term sheet here, virtually identical, as close as basically you can get with math in terms of number of units and unit mix. Likewise with the unit sizes and locations. You can imagine there's a lot of energy that goes into making all these parameters fit together. One thing I wanted to talk about here is the floating system. I believe the public comment back 3 hours ago at the beginning of this, which was during the generic public comment, was somewhat related to this. So this floating system is such that we have identified specific units that are designated as BMR at lease up. But then over time, as somebody in that unit exceeds their income level, with this type of system, they are not required to move. I don't know about you, but I haven't met anybody that enjoys the process of moving. So this is considered, I think, a BMR best practice, and we've really tried to make this a rock solid BMR proposal kind of across the board. Which leads me to the highlight of the evening, maybe. We're proposing a mix of income units, moderate, low, and very low, virtually evenly distributed, and kind of a logical grouping in terms of the unit mix. In terms of the community amenities proposal, we're going heavy BMR, 4 additional BMR units, again, kind of going right up the middle in terms of 1 bedroom, low income. You can see the square footage. There's also a cafe as part of the community amenities proposal, and our proposal provides ultimately a surplus of $234,000. Last slide I've got here is the elevations, just to sort of drive home the point that there's really no distinction between the market rate units and the BMR units. I mean, just it's not a concept. Nobody think about it this way: from the design and construction teams would have no idea what unit is what. So, in the interest of keeping it brief, I will stop there and hand it back over to Kyle.
Thank you, Satish. I will do a brief presentation now, sharing my screen. Just want to make sure that everybody can see it. Excellent, thank you. Again, good evening, Commission. The project we for you this evening is the redevelopment of an existing site located at 111 Independence Drive. As Satish mentioned, the project site is currently consists of 15,000 square foot of office space, which is proposed to be demolished. The site is located east of Marsh Road at the Marsh Road Independence Drive interchange, and it's towards the eastern side of the multifamily bonus zoning district that was mentioned by Tom at the previous project. So the project is proposing 105 multifamily rental units with 476 square foot of cafe space, parking, bicycle parking, and on-site amenities. At the bonus level, the project would provide 15% or 14 units as inclusionary housing, affordable to very low and moderate income, as Satish was mentioning. Since this is a bonus level project, the project will be required to provide community amenities. And part of the community amenities proposal is to provide 4 one-bedroom low-income units. So there will be a total of 18 below market rate units as part of the project. The community amenity units are also subject to the BMR requirements in terms of the 55-year deed restriction and any other requirements that is specified in the term sheet that the inclusionary units would be subject to. Staff finds that the proposed BMR proposal for inclusionary housing for this project is consistent with the below market rate housing program for the city. We also find that the inclusionary housing as well as the community amenities units are evenly distributed throughout the project, and that the size of the units is comparable to those provided at market rate as part of the project. Overall, the project is providing flexibility in the distribution of units to ensure high occupancy. And as Satish mentioned, the units will be designed to look similar to the market rate units. And for this reason, staff is recommending that the Commission forward a recommendation of approval of the BMR term sheet to Planning Commission. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation and am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you both very much. Do we have any clarifying questions before we go to public comment? I have one about the floating unit concept, which I think is great. And I think it's something that Satish and I talked about way back when we spoke. But now that I'm thinking about it, I have a question about the unit size mix. Let's say somebody is in a 3-bedroom BMR unit or 2-bedroom, that's the most, a large one, large unit in this, and they get a big raise. And so now they're no longer, they make more than moderate income maximum. So their rent moves up to the market rate. And then the next unit to become available perhaps is a BMR unit, but what if the next unit is a studio or 1-bedroom? Then do we lose our large BMR unit? How does that work?
Chair, I'd be happy to field that question. So the way the floating process works in that scenario that you just proposed, that 3-bedroom unit, that household would be notified that they're no longer eligible to participate in the BMR program because their income has increased, and they would be given adequate notice of that. And up until another 3-bedroom, so a comparable unit becomes vacant, the project would be in compliance. So if the next comparable unit that comes available is a 2-bedroom, are not comparable. The next available unit that comes available is a 2-bedroom, that's not comparable. So, we would still wait for the next 3-bedroom turnover to become available.
So in the meantime, would the person have to move?
No.
Because they were out, so they would just be out of compliance. And
so that household's rent would be marked up to market. So they're paying market rent, but as long as the property is waiting and watching for the next available 3-bedroom unit to become available and making that available to a BMR household, they would be considered in compliance.
In compliance, not out of compliance.
Correct. As long as they offer the next available 3-bedroom unit
to
a qualified household, BMR household.
Okay. So it's a little bit of a trade-off because there's a period of time, but we probably have a big enough list that it's not going to be a big, no, it's the unit. Never mind. Okay, I understand. Other clarifying questions? Should we go to public comment? Okay, let's go to public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment, please engage the raised hand feature now. I will then have the ability to open your microphone and you can provide public comment to the Housing Commission. We do have one hand raised. And just give me 1 second. All right, we have a couple hand raised. So the first hand I saw go up will be Kim Novello. Kim, you should be able to unmute your microphone now and address the Housing Commission.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Again, this is my first Housing Commission meeting. I'm just trying to get an understanding for how things are done in Menlo Park. And again, I've been in this town for I think over 15 years. So you heard my comments regarding the last property that we discussed, and the same comments go to this one. In addition, I'm trying to understand what the needs, I don't know what they are, what the needs are for single residents versus family residents. It also seems like with the floating system that once people get into a place, if they could stay for a really long time, and it seems like you could keep losing the larger BMR units if people don't want to move out. This property, in my opinion, doesn't look like it would be a place where a lot of families would go. So maybe in this case, that's okay. I don't know. But in all the properties that, I'm kind of looking at this from a holistic view. I'm wondering where would the families fit better? I like the idea of having a mix, but let's make it a real mix. So many of these units seem to be studios and 1-bedrooms, which for the first time, I just looked at the square footage and those seem shockingly small for people to actually live in. And then where do these people go once they if they get married or have a family? Where are all those people gonna go that are in these small units? I wanna think of this long-term. Also, I haven't heard a word much about schools. I know that the schools have their own districts, but I was in a school in Redwood City and the downtown school closed because of budget crisis. And yet the entire downtown Redwood City is now a huge bunch of apartment buildings. And I don't know where all those families are going to send their kids to school. So I just would like to have all these projects that are being looked at, including this one, really consider the size of the spaces that people are expected to live in. And also one thing I forgot to mention earlier, like the walls and the construction, please, think about people's mental health and are these walls thick enough so that they can't hear their neighbors? And are they gonna have peace in these places? This place is actually right next to the freeway. Please consider all these factors when you're thinking about where people are going to live their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And our next public speaker. 1 second while I reset the clock. Will be Pam Jones, and Pam, you should be able to unmute your microphone now.
Yes, thank you, Pam Jones again. First I want to say is I do like the looks of this project, and coming over the freeway on Marsh Road, it'll be a much nicer look than what we see now. And I like the idea that they've made it convex so that it fits in with the existing property. And it's going to have reasonably good access over the ramp to shopping. And maybe with people living there, it will force us to make that an even safer pedestrian and bicycle access. The other thing that I noted on this project, and I mentioned it at the Planning Commission, and that is on page 4, they actually talk about what we're supposed to have as far as the housing elements in very low, moderate, and above moderate income households. And I thought that was very helpful to let us know where we are. And we definitely need to do some work with that. But I just wanted to thank them for putting that in there. And that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Great.
And at this time, if there are any additional members of the public that would like to provide a public comment, you may raise your hand feature now. Use the raised hand feature now. And I do not see any additional comments at this time, so I'll return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
Okay, so open for expansive questions, comments, motions. I'll start by saying that this BMR proposal has come a very, very long way since the time I talked to Satish. So Satish, I really appreciate how you've evolved from the original proposal to what is, pretty much world, best of class. So I still have a little bit, the floating thing is a bit of a on the one hand, on the other hand. So I'd love to hear from other commissioners about that, but it's a mix, it's distributed. I wish there were more larger family units, but I also recognize that that's kind of just not the sweet spot of your particular development, and it is in proportion. And so thank you. Rachel, I see your hand.
This is a clarifying question that I should have asked when you asked for clarifying questions, but because of the thing that you just said, with the wishing that there were, some larger units involved, it is not actually a requirement of our BMR guide, and this is for staff, of our BMR guidelines that the mix of, and I'm talking about the bedroom mix of the BMR units match that percentage-wise of the market rate or the overall development, right? It's just supposed to be reasonably approximate. It's not like it has to match. Is that correct?
So yeah, if you're directing that to staff, yes, we do look to make sure that the BMR units that are being proposed match the same size as the other units. So the one bedrooms, the percentage of one bedroom should be the same percentage for the BMRs for each unit size. Studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms.
Oh, because I thought I saw on one of the slides that it was something like, in the BMR mix, it was 7%. The 2 bedrooms are 7% of the total, but in the total development, they were 10% of the total or something. And it wasn't exactly the same, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same. That's what I'm clarifying.
Right. So not exactly, but as close as possible.
Did I see another hand? Nevada, yes. You're on mute.
I'll comment to you that I believe this floating system that's proposed is a best practice and is very standard. And I'm very comfortable with that approach since you asked for that. And then for the applicant. My question, since you listened to the previous hearing, or previous, wasn't necessarily hearing, our last item, is the same related to marketing. So can you explain a little bit about the future management company, and if you have any reservations about articulating some of the same management goals that we went through on the last round? Sorry, you're muted now.
I'm on my phone, so I have double mute problems going on here. So no, we don't have reservations about following what you articulated quite a few times in the prior project. So we would anticipate the same language being included in our BMR agreement as well. All I know is I can also say that in terms of who would be involved, I mean, I would be involved still. So there's no, I mean, there would be additional staffing added certainly, but I would be involved in the management as well. Correct.
Do you hire a third-party manager?
Yes, but I would be still involved.
Oh, so do you have an idea of who you might use, or can you provide any
I definitely wouldn't. Not the time to announce that yet.
Okay, so I think that, in the difference from the previous applicant is that they do their own management, and they are a firm with a big reputation, because they're one of the biggest groups that do that kind of business nationally. So I think in this case, Ms. Kaufman are, my comments I think are, but they're the same, but I think they come with the additional layer of the fact that we're not sure what, who we might be working with later on, which isn't necessarily a problem for me. It's just that it is really important, because a lot of the third-party managers may have issues with that, with those terms that I articulated. So, thanks.
I asked the previous developer how long they plan to own and operate the development, and I would like to ask you the same question.
Yes, actually, I usually mention that in the upfront. So we're certainly we're going through all this 5-year process because our plan is to build and own for the long term.
Great. And then the other question I asked the previous applicant, or you're not applying to us for anything, previous person, was about the rents that you plan to charge for the BMR units. Are you also pegging your target rent at the maximum allowed, or are you going to give yourself that bigger band of people who can both qualify and afford the rent?
It's most certainly the same answer. It's most certainly the maximum. I mean, this project is hard enough to pencil with the way it is. So that's, I mean, just, I think the Housing Commission should just already know this, frankly. Like, that's going to be the answer, I think, universally.
Okay, thank you. Kurt?
So I have kind of the same question that I had for the Greystar folks. If you have a financial partner, how are they responding to the notion that rents are down a third?
It is, we have not, the financing has not been finalized. So it's in process. So it is definitely a difficult process. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The project only makes sense with a very long-term view. It only makes sense with a view that the market will rebound post-pandemic. Otherwise, it's more of a, let's put this on hold.
Yeah, no, that makes kind of sense. I mean, timing, real estate's all about timing. Timing.
Indeed.
see no more hands. Would someone like to make a motion?
I could move approval similarly to our last, maybe we could have Mike back because he's our helper on this.
Yeah. Minus the part about you. Oh, by the way, thank you for providing a mix of incomes.
Yeah, you're quite welcome.
Yeah, without that part of it.
Yes, it's the same without the first part, and thank you.
So if I may, Madam Chair, I'll be sure to include that we would like to have marketing and screening best practices be articulated moving forward for the project. So I think that encapsulates what was mentioned in the last one, but please correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Merriman.
That's
good. Okay, so who would like to make that motion?
I'm happy to make it again, sure.
All right, and I see Rachel lifting her hand. So Rachel, will you second it?
Yes, seconded.
Okay. Then let's do a roll call vote. Commissioner Bigelow.
Aye.
Commissioner Conroy.
I'm abstaining again.
Commissioner McPherson.
Yes.
Commissioner Merriman.
Yes.
Commissioner Pimentel.
Aye.
Commissioner Horst.
Aye.
And I say yes as well. Okay, so the motion passes. Thank you, Satiz and Hayal.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, Mike. Don't we have one more BMR or we're on D5, is that correct? Okay.
Over.
We already did the Waymo thing. Was that the first thing we did? I'm sorry. Yeah, we did. Okay. D5, information update on the NOFA submissions. I feel like this is dessert. We ate all our healthy food and now we get to hear who applied for the NOFA. So Rhonda, take it away.
Okay, good evening, Chair and Commission members. So I just wanted to provide an update to you, a brief update to you tonight on the responses to the Notice of Funding Availability that was published back in December. Applications.
Wait, hold on. I see a hand raised and I don't, should we check in? And did I miss a public comment opportunity?
No, I think that individual will most likely provide public comment, Madam Chair, when the time comes.
Okay.
But I see that the hand is down, so I'll assume that it'll probably go back up. We
later.
will have a
Okay.
public comment.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Rhonda. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. So was just saying that the applications were due January 22nd, and we received, we did a pretty robust outreach of the NOFA, marketing it, and staff spoke to a number of developers. We received 3 proposals by the submittal date. So one of those is from Mid-Penn Housing. They are proposing to redevelop a property that they own at 335 Pierce Road, which currently has 4 duplexes or 4 units on it, rental units. They're proposing to redevelop that as home ownership units, 12 townhouses, and for available for low income households. They're requesting a total of 3.6 million. Then we also received a proposal from Habitat for Humanity, Greater San Francisco. Their proposal was for a program. If you recall, this year's NOFA not only permitted the submittal of the standard proposals of new construction or acquisition and rehab, but also programs that would help preserve or produce housing. So Habitat was one of those that submitted a proposal for homeownership preservation, a homeownership preservation program. They're proposing to rehabilitate 20 single-family homes in the Bellhaven neighborhood over the next 3 years by making deferred zero-interest loans to very low-income households. And they're requesting a total of $1.2 million to operate that program. And then finally, the third proposal that was received was from HIP Housing Development Corporation. They are proposing that they acquire an existing apartment building that was for sale. Early on in the process, when the NOFA was published, they immediately started looking for property and found one that was for sale, did their due diligence, and in order to seize the opportunity, had to enter into purchase contract to hold that property. That property has a total of 14 units, and they are requesting $5.5 million to help with the acquisition of that project. So what I would want to tell you, so in total, the proposals total $10.3 million, and we made available $10 million. Of those three proposals, the HIP housing proposal needs to be, it's on an accelerated timeline because they entered into purchase contract. So they have to remove contingencies by February 26th, and they have to close escrow by April 1st. As I mentioned, they completed their due diligence. So that one is going to move ahead to City Council on the February 23rd City Council meeting. There'll be a full staff report along with the proposal and all the details for City Council consideration to award those funds. So with that, I will stop and answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Okay, let's go to public comment.
I'm sorry, if I may, just before we do, this is part of wrapping up my piece is after public comment or when or now, I would like to request that there possibly be an ad hoc formed that would be comprised of some Housing Commission members to work with staff to look at these proposals and queue them up for presentation to the Housing Commission.
Okay, so should we take public comment and then get to the ad hoc?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, if I may. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment, please engage the raised hand feature. I will then have the ability to open your microphone and you can provide your public comment to the Housing Commission. We do have one hand raised. And Kate Comfort Har, you should be able to unmute your microphone to address the Housing Commission.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
That's awesome. I'm Kate Comfort Har, I'm Executive Director of HIP Housing. And first of all, I want to thank you for opening a NOFA. It's always super exciting to get a NOFA from a local city. And I want to also thank you for reviewing our application to acquire the 14-unit property that's located at 68 Coleman Place in Menlo Park. I'd love to be able to answer any questions that you might have, but also just to give you a little bit of an overview. This project represents a preservation project where we would go in, acquire the property, deed restrict it, lease it at affordable for, prosperity of the 55-year deed restriction and beyond. No one would be displaced. All vacant units would be leased up in compliance with the 51 to 80% affordability levels. We have written our pro forma at 60% AMI, and if we can actually do less, we prefer it. So, because it's easier to rent and keep those units filled. So depending on what our final private loan comes in at, we hope to be able to actually lease them at a little bit less. We are specialists in preservation. We own 18 properties throughout the county. It's a really specialized niche. It's a total of 265 units, and this is a perfect preservation project. Coleman is west of Highway 101, so it's in a wonderful location. It's incredibly well maintained, which is super important in a preservation project. It's a combination of 1 and 2 unit property, and it's very hard to find older buildings with 2-unit bedrooms in them. So we're really excited about that. 2-bedroom units. It's the right size. It pencils perfectly for us. And the seller did give us a 90-day escrow, and a typical escrow would only be 30 days, but that's still a very truncated time frame for the NOFA process. We are very excited to be preservation specialists. It's an important part of the toolkit of affordable housing options. We currently house about 55 people in low-income housing in Menlo Park through our home sharing, our property development, and our self-sufficiency programs. My first acquisition with HIP Housing was on Willow Road with the city of Menlo Park, and it was a great success, 12 units, very similar to this. We did a nice rehab on that, and it was a great start to my career as a developer with HIP Housing. But I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the project or about preservation in general. Thank you.
And we do have another hand raised, Madam Chair, so give me 1 second. Okay, so our next public speaker will be Kim Novello. Kim, I will unmute. You should be able to unmute your microphone now.
Hi, good evening once again. And thank you again for bearing with me. Again, my first commission meeting. I've never heard of NOVA before. This is the first I'm hearing of it. But based on just what I heard, just wanted to give my 2 cents, I suppose. I love that there's affordable housing that's being found west of 101. I encourage the commission to please, let's try to diversify Menlo Park as a whole. So I like that. I'm concerned about, I don't know which project it was, but one sounded like it was going from 4 units to 12. So I don't, I'm concerned about that neighborhood, whether, is that taking away nature? And then what size units are they? Again, I really encourage the commission to look at the health and the long-term mental health and welfare of the types of places that are being given money to. And that's all I have. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
And I'll give it 1 second.
Okay.
If there are any additional public comments, please use the raised hand feature now. And not seeing any, I will return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
So thank you to everyone who made public comment. And Kim, thank you for your 0 to 100 engagement with Housing Matters. So welcome to the party. And I'm glad that you're making comments. So commissioners, comments? I don't know if this is really the should we be asking? I just want to say I'm super excited. This is all 3 of these projects just warm my heart. And it seems like we could fund all of them. We're a little bit short, but maybe we can figure something out. So that would be a joy to be able to do. So I'm thrilled. This is dessert for sure for this meeting. Thank you, Kate, for being here and for moving fast. And I guess I just want to say, I don't mind that the city council gets to decide this. We need to move forward, and I'm glad we're doing so. Anybody else want to say anything? Wendy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking that the bottom line here really is how much, what's the best bang for a buck in these processes and each of these choices. And I think that I'm not able to assess that. I wonder, as maybe Rhonda suggested, we have a quick subcommittee, although I don't want to hold things up. You know, I don't want to have HIPAA fail because we can't make a decision in the right time. And that goes for the other two too. But I'm just thinking, is there a quick way to assess these, have a little ad hoc committee quickly assess these and bring it back to us, or I don't know, some way to get it done quickly?
Yeah, I think that is the idea for the other two, but because of the HIP housing time frame, that one, I mean, I do think it checks off all of our boxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's preservation of affordable, I assume it's currently naturally affordable housing, but
yeah,
and it's west of Menlo Park. It's in the Menlo Park City School District.
Yeah. I just was wondering that doesn't, approving that doesn't preclude us from the other ones.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Fine.
Rhonda, is that correct? I shouldn't speak for you.
That's definitely correct. And just to clarify, the city has accepted proposals from developers for affordable housing projects for use of the BMR funds off cycle. So this is sort of how this one is being looked at, although it is being reviewed and vetted, and a full staff report will go forward to City Council with all the details, which of course the Housing Commission will be able to look at. And then we are asking for an ad hoc to help look at and evaluate and set up some criteria for the other proposals that have come in. And it's planned for those to hopefully make presentations at your next meeting to give you an overview in more details about what they are proposing, so that then with some framework around for the Housing Commission to consider about how to evaluate those and how you may want to recommend funds for those projects.
So I just a little bit of transparent facilitation now between me and Rhonda. My understanding was that the ad hoc committee would would look at the proposals, but also come back to commission when those proposals are presented to us with a process for how we evaluate. Maybe that's the criteria, sort of a process for how we evaluate them and make a decision. And then we will, if we approve that process, go forward from there. So it's not the ad hoc committee won't sort of be making an ad hoc committee recommendation to the Housing Commission as much as here's how we should weigh these projects against each other and against nothing, against
Yeah, how much time is that going to take?
What it'll have to happen between now and the next meeting, the ad hoc committee.
And when do the contingencies have to be removed for HIPAA?
For HIP housing?
Yeah.
Oh, that's already, that's what, just February 24th, so 26th?
26th, February 26th, they have to remove, and so it's on City Council's tentative agenda for February 23rd.
How are we going to have another housing meeting before then?
Go ahead, Rachel.
So we're kind of letting this one go. We're treating this like it's not going through that, like you're saying, Rhonda, off cycle. And you're recommending as staff that we do that. Are you recommending the project or to City Council, or are you still working on that evaluation?
Yes, staff will be recommending the project be funded to City Council in the staff report that moves forward.
Yeah, well, good. There you go. Fun.
While we're here, does anybody have questions for, and is it procedurally allowed for Kate to answer questions?
Technically, it's not for this item. This was more of an informational update from staff, and that was a public comment. And so, yeah.
That's why I asked, because I figured that was the answer. So just as someone who does this on a regular basis, I recommend that what we do is actually maybe Mike or Rhonda could send us all an email when the city council staff report is out, so that we can read the staff report for the HIP housing proposal and write or make public comment to city council. When I do that, I just say, I'm Karen Grove, I'm chair of the Housing Commission, or I'm on the Housing Commission, but I'm speaking as an individual, which makes it clear that you have a level of expertise and background, but you're not representing the commission as a whole. It's a very useful way to provide, you know, your advisory role off cycle in this way.
I second that.
So who is interested in serving on said ad hoc committee? Okay. Committee of one. Rhonda,
I mean, I'm not able to serve on that committee, so.
oh, true, you're not. Yes.
So.
Chair Grove, that should be fine. It should be a fairly quick ad hoc meeting and to queue up for
Okay.
in time for the March meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. I don't, what's next? We have no ad hoc committee, so we have no ad hoc subcommittee reports. Do we have any commissioner updates? Kurt.
So as some of you may know, have been a one-day homeless count conducted last Thursday by the county, and due to the pandemic, it has gotten postponed indefinitely. And I just thought I'd mention that they are still hoping to have it, and that I'm planning on volunteering, and if anybody else is interested, that you know, I've been in touch with the county, and they're supposed to let me know what their plans are, and I can let anybody else know if they're interested.
Great. Maybe you could send that information to Rhonda to share with all of us.
I've been talking. Rhonda suggested I bring it up now.
Great. Okay. Well, it's good to have a heads up without the details, but when the details come.
Sure.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm definitely interested and have done it many times, and it's eye-opening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very interested. And last time I was out of town, I want to do it. Other commissioner updates. I'll share that I've given, I think now 5 Zoom workshops on the history of residential segregation to members of the community, whether Menlo Park City School District or Ladera residents or San Mateo County Housing Department. And it's really, really a high impact history to learn about because it's ours. It's so local and so recent. And it's a local history that complements, that we dug up, the people working on this, that complements and gives color to the history that Richard Rothstein reveals in his book, The Color of Law. So if anyone is, I did invite everyone when we did it on January 6th, but if you couldn't make it and you want to participate in an upcoming workshop, feel free to reach out to me. Do we have any other commissioner updates? Okay.
No update, but I can say I attended one that was powerful, so thank you.
Thank you.
And it was also powerful to hear Pam Jones talk about walking across the 101 earlier in her life and what it means now with our transportation policy being as it is and the highways, to really just think about that. So I really appreciated everybody's role in trying to bring that history forward.
Thank you. Kurt.
I don't know if this is the time and the place, but I wanted to throw out for the commissioners to sort of just think about, you know, there is a pretty significant supermarket near the Home Depot. And I think that part of the problem of the Bellhaven neighborhood is getting across Willow and University. And I was just wondering, kind of like there's an underpass for the railroad tracks on Fifth Avenue in Redwood City, whether or not an underpass going underneath Willow Road, going underneath University over on that side might just sort of open up that whole area and make getting around a lot easier. I'm not sure if that falls into housing or not, but it and one of our big questions over there is the amenities of grocery stores and stuff like that. And I think part of it is that it's just so hard to get from one place to another, given that that whole area is so cut up by Willow Road and University Avenue. And I'll just throw in my abstentions tonight have a lot to do with, I spoke to the city council back when they had a meeting in Bellhaven about a year and a half ago. And I said, I think that there should be a moratorium on all new office construction in Menlo Park. And I think, this is anathema to the commission perhaps, but I think until we get our vacancy rate back to something close to 10%, the notion of building new units just, I'm fearful that things are going to get half built, and that would be a tragedy. So my thoughts for the night.
Thank you for explaining that. The next agenda item is future agenda items. We will be hearing presentations on the NOFA projects next month. Lauren has suggested hearing about the health impacts of housing decisions. And we have Lauren and I had a meeting with Shireen, right? Who heads up sort of health equity at the county. And it was a fabulous draft presentation that she walked us through. So I think that would be a great opportunity for us. So just if that sounds like something you'd like to put on agenda, give me a visual thumbs up or something. Okay, great. And I mean, we don't want to pack an agenda too much, so we'll see where that fits in. And then, do we have any staff updates or announcements? Does anybody else have?
Could we have an update? And maybe staff will give part of this update in a few minutes, but could we have an update on the way the council may have discussed the housing element process, and then soon kind of understand the approach for how we'll be moving through that, both from a community outreach perspective, but also how are they going to come up with another ad hoc committee as they did for the last one? What's the composition of that? And all of those details. I'm seeing a lot of cities starting to put together their outreach plans and their approach generally for the work that's ahead of us over the next almost 2 years, but a lot will be happening this year. So interested to hear thinking about that.
I appreciate that, and I would sort of second that. And one of the things that I heard a heads up about is that it would be important to scope and retain our consultants, particularly if we want a consultant with a racial equity expertise, because we just had a racial reckoning over the summer, and that skill set is in high demand. So I think acting sooner than later to get our ducks in a row is probably a good idea. So I would love an update as well with that little, and I'd like to see that next month if it's feasible. Other comments? Okay. Moving on to staff updates and announcements.
All right, I'll be providing some updates this evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to start, so I've got two main updates. I just wanted to start with also mentioning to members of the public that we do have information on our website at menlopark.org/housing. My contact information as well as Rhonda's is there, and we always welcome any questions about BMR programs and so forth. So additional resources there. The first update I have for you this evening is in regards to a BMR ownership unit, which will be going through a resale. The current owners, it's located on Hamilton Avenue. The current owners, and it is a single family home, the current owners are relocating due to a new job opportunity. So they did give the city their notice of intent to sell the unit, which is required in the deed restriction. As a BMR unit in the home buying program, with most, with all of these agreements, basically, typically all new ones give the city a 180-day window to find a new qualified BMR home buyer. And at that time, when we do find a new home buyer, the 55-year deed restriction will restart as well. This agreement specifically for this unit had a 90-day window, which is much shorter than we would have liked. And that was just due to the sale at the time and the way the agreements were written. That was, I believe, back in 2007. So it is now a 180-day window, and that'll be put in place with the new buyer. But basically, the staff went to City Council last month because we had to move rather quickly and exercise the city's right to purchase the unit first. That way, we save the unit from to keep it in our BMR portfolio. City Council approved that on January 12th, and city staff is working to complete the purchase, and escrow will hopefully close in March, and then we will work with our new BMR administrator, which gets me into my second update, to locate the new BMR homeowner. So I know that's a lot of information. Happy to follow up with any questions. The second update is about our new BMR administrator. So we did release an RFP, and that RFP was, we did receive multiple, and this was for BMR administration services. Hello Housing was the previous administrator. They were with the city from 2000, I believe it was 2014 to current, and they were also one of the applicants who submitted a proposal. So Hello Housing and House Keys were the two that it was narrowed down to, and we reviewed those proposals. House Keys was selected as the new BMR administrator moving forward. Their contract officially started on Monday, so we're going through a transition period now. We will have a city dedicated website. We're merging information over to a dedicated website, which House Keys will administer. So we'll definitely provide that update in the future. I'm trying to keep it a little bit more brief than I had intended given the late hour, but happy to answer any additional questions. House Keys and staff are working on this transition, so we'll be up and running shortly, but we do have House Keys information on our website, so they are available to contact. So there's no interruption to services at this time. So we are moving forward. And I'll leave it at that, but I'm happy to answer any questions or fill in any blanks.
Where are they headquartered?
They are located, good question, Commissioner Conroy, they're located in Morgan Hill. They work with a number of municipalities up and down the peninsula and in the Bay Area primarily. I think we're their 10th municipality, and they've been in business for the last few years. So they, during the proposal process, when we were reviewing proposals, we did reach out to cities that were currently using them for services, and all of those reviews were good. So that helped us make an informed decision.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anything else for staff updates, announcements?
That is it. Thank you.
Okay. With that, thank you. I will adjourn the meeting. Yay.
All right.
It was a long
Good night.
one. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Yeah.